Today, we're going to be taking a look at some of the most memorable FNAF fan games ever made. These are the games that players still talk about years later. Whether it's because of the characters, stories, gameplay, or unforgettable moments, some of these fan games left such a strong impression that they've become impossible to forget, so let's dive into them. What is the worst FNAF game you've ever played? Maybe it was Jolly. Maybe it was Mac Tonight. Maybe it was even Fangs, Pizza, and Theater. All valid answers, but let me ask you to dig even deeper in your mind for a terrible FNAF game that you've played. Think back to the time you spent scrolling through FNAF games made in Scratch when you were supposed to be doing your work in high school. Think of going on Game Jolt and the FNAF tab and pressing new and just picking a game at random. Think of any game that somebody who made a FNAF game has asked a YouTuber to make a video about. These are specifically the type of games I'm referring to. Do you have one in mind? Or have you completely wiped them all from your memory? Well, today I have a new one to forcefully shove back into your noggin. Today, we're going to be talking about a game called Fredbear's Backstory. As I'm sure you know, I've been playing FNAF for a long time, so I've played many games. However, it's very seldom that I find a game that made me upset in the way that Fredbear's Backstory did. So sit back, relax, and let's jump into the worst FNAF game you've never heard of. Let's dive right into night one. This game has so much to talk about and so much about it that I just don't like. So let's begin by starting at the start, because where else would I start? Night one begins and immediately I'm already upset. Why is that, you might ask? Well, I've got a quick question for you. When you're listening to the phone call of a FNAF game, aka the thing that is supposed to teach you how to deal with the problems you're about to face, when you're listening to these phone calls, do you like to be able to hear them? Well, if you answered yes to that question, then you're going to be saddened to hear that you won't be able to hear a damn thing this phone guy says. He is so incredibly quiet, and everything else in the game is so incredibly loud. I truly have no idea how the dev of this game thought this sounded good, because it really doesn't.
To give you a recap, I am a paranormal investigator. I was hired by others establishment. I wanted to check up on this place after hours. I may have discovered some odd occurrences here. Well, I didn't begin my show. These sounds, the hunting and nocturnal animals, they feel uneasy here.
And because of us not being able to hear anything the phone guy is saying to us, we're left with being forced to figure out all of the tools at our disposal, and more importantly, all of the threats, all by ourselves. Hooray! This is gonna be so fun! Now is usually the point in time where I would start talking about the tools at our disposal. However, something about this game is that there are a lot of tools at our disposal, and it would probably take me a good 10 minutes to talk about all of them right now, so I'm not going to do that. Instead, we'll talk about the mechanics as they become relevant. However, I will still talk about the basics. Of course, we have a camera system that has so many cameras on it, I think I would rather kill myself than think about it right now. In our office, we have a mask as well. Awesome. We'll see a massive hallway in front of us, and we can turn in two different directions. The first will show us a vent, and in the other direction, we'll actually be able to see Foxy, which isn't scary at all, and then a door that we can close. Fantastic. And yes, there's still a shitload more mechanics to talk about, and a shitload of animatronics that will become active. Speaking of animatronics, now is probably the time we should start talking about what it is they do and how they're going to decide to enter our internal organs. Well, quite a few characters get introduced on this night, so this is really a matter of where do I start? I'd honestly prefer not to start, because this game is honestly one of the most rage-inducing I've ever played, but alas, I have to choose, so I'm going to start by talking about Spring Freddy, a character whose name you've probably never heard before in your entire life. Spring Freddy has a very basic mechanic. He starts on camera 1 on stage. To keep things as simple as possible, you do not want Spring Freddy to leave this stage. It will not be fun if he does. Thankfully, whenever he does leave the stage, a warning will appear in the top corner of the screen. When you see this error, all you have to do is go to camera 1 and press the change song button in the bottom corner. This will lure Spring Freddy's fat ass back to the stage, and you will remain safe. I personally believe that the reason they call him Spring Freddy is because his ass is so big that when he jumps on it, he bounces back up like a spring. He's got springs in his ass. He's ugly and a fat. Anyways, enough of that. I just had to throw at least one fat joke in the first quarter of the video, and let's just say I'm satisfied with myself. The next character introduced on this night is Spring Bonnie, aka a character with a name you probably actually do recognize. And Spring Bonnie is the character that will begin the onslaught of introducing new mechanics that this game has. So let's jump right into it with a smile on our faces. Except the side effect is, it's not a smile at all. Spring Bonnie will start on camera 1, just like Spring Freddy. From there, he will move to camera 10. Shortly after that, you will hear a vent banging sound. And from that point, that means he either moved to vent 1 on camera 11 or vent 2 on camera 13. All you have to do is check which vent he entered and seal it off. But of course, as I'm sure you could have guessed, these vents are not very nice, and you can't just leave them closed the entire night or they'll overheat, and then Spring Bonnie will put his tongue all over your feet. Bars, don't play with me. Finally, the last threat introduced on this night is Bonnie. Regular Bonnie this time, since for some reason we have the spring variants and the regular variants this time around, which I personally happen to just love the sound of. Bonnie will start on camera 2, which you will see has another stage with regular Chica and Freddy as well, but we'll talk about them a bit later. Bonnie will move from camera 2 to camera 9. Once in camera 9, at random, you may hear him do Jordan's signature shimmy. When you hear this means he's currently hopping down the old bunny trail directly to your office door to attempt to run his tongue down your unshaven treasure trail with Dorito crumbs left in it. Disgusting, by the way. Obviously, all you have to do is quickly turn around and close this door, and Bonnie will run back to the stage. So there we go. That's all of the characters introduced on night 1. And we have a lot more to talk about in night 2. You may be thinking that what I've mentioned already seems pretty boring, but I promise you, it's about to get a lot more interesting. And by a lot more interesting, I mean I'm about to do a lot more complaining, which I happen to know you guys absolutely love. Moving on to night 2, we don't nearly have as many threats to talk about. However, don't let that fool you, as it's just one less threat than last night, meaning that on night 2, we already have 5 threats to deal with. Is that not fucking insane? I know that other games have done worse to me, but like, I'm really sitting back and thinking about it. 5 enemies on night 2 when I can't hear the phone guy explain to me how to deal with them? This is brutal. The first character we'll talk about is Freddy. Normal Freddy this time. He introduces a brand new mechanic to us. His main goal is to get to your office through the giant open chasm in front of you. The way he gets there is pretty simple. He'll start in camera 2 on stage. From there, he'll move to camera 3, and from there, he will just appear in your hallway. Now, I want to pause for just a moment and explain to you why exactly this game is going to get as hard as it does in the future. And it's exactly for the reason I just explained. Freddy moves twice, and he's already in attack mode. This is the case for several of the characters. So few movement opportunities to already needing to be dealt with is insanity. And when you have 5 characters all doing that at the same time, it's going to get stressful very quickly. Anyways, what do we do once Freddy whips out his stinky smegma-filled chode out in front of us in the hallway? Well, this is where we get to talk about a new mechanic. Looking in our office, you'll notice a locker in front of us. Inside of this locker is an endoskeleton. What we need to do when Freddy appears in the hallway is to get out of his line of sight. That makes sense. How do we do this? Maybe we hide under the desk. Maybe we put the mask on. No, you see, that would make too much sense. What we actually need to do is take the endoskeleton out of the locker and put it in front of Freddy. That way he can't see us because we'll be behind the endoskeleton. Now, this brings up several questions. To start, do you know how heavy an endoskeleton is? I feel like Freddy would kill us by the time we moved the endoskeleton over to in front of him. And speaking of that, Freddy 100% would see us moving the fucking giant robot in front of him. So why is it even tricking him? And finally, if we have to go over to the locker to take the endoskeleton out, then we're already standing by the wall out of Freddy's line of sight. So why even waste our energy dragging this big bitch over there? Why not just stand next to the wall and call it a fucking day? I just don't understand it. All right, enough complaining about Freddy. Let's move on to the other threat this night introduces, Foxy. And no, it's not the Foxy behind you. That's another Foxy. This Foxy I'm talking about is on the cameras. So who's the Foxy behind us? How about just shut your dirty whore mouth and don't worry about it? Sounds good? Great. Foxy will begin on camera 6. From there, he will move to camera 9. His goal is the same as Bonnie's, attack you through your door. So once you hear his classic footstep sounds, all you have to do is quickly close the door before he licks your butt crack like an envelope and seals it with his cream stamp of approval. Aren't I just the best at painting mental images? Yeah, I know I am. So yeah, Foxy is just Bonnie with pretty much no changes at all except the first 2 cameras he's in. Pretty lazy overall, but then again, we're playing a FNAF game surrounding Fredbear. There's already 400,000 of those on Game Jolt, and maybe 6 of them are actually good and unique. Spoiler alert, this is not one of those games. This one is just really fucking hard. However, you won't notice the difficulty of this game at this point in playing it. Something you'll quickly notice about this game is how terrible the difficulty curve is. Animatronics are honestly hardly moving at this point, but very soon and out of nowhere, that will ramp up and absolutely turn your exit-only hole into an entrance-only hole for robots. But with that, we can move on to night 3. And it's on night 3 where I start to get sad that there's no post-night minigames. I know I pretty much always bitch and complain about post-night minigames on this channel, but in all honesty, they're probably some of my favorite things to talk about. Even if they are always repetitive and boring as fuck, at least I have something fun to complain about. Night 3 once again follows the trend of introducing one less threat on each night, as night 3 only introduces 1, and holy shit is it boring. Literally just being a copy-paste character of a character we've already seen. We're going to play a little game though, to make it just a little bit more fun. Here's how the game's gonna work. I'm going to start explaining what this character does, and you'll have to comment which character they're copying as fast as you can. Ready? All right, here we go. Night 3 introduces Chica. This game follows the trend of using the withered models of the animatronics, except choosing to make them not withered, which I do honestly think makes a lot more sense than what Scott did. But then again, I think we all know that in terms of continuity and story writing, Scott Cawthon had absolutely no fucking idea what he was doing. Anyways, we're talking about Chica, so let's keep doing that. Chica starts on camera 2. She jumps to camera 3 before appearing inside of the hallway in front of you. When she does, you'll have to get out of her line of sight by taking the endoskeleton out of the locker and setting it in front of her. If you still haven't figured out who Chica copies, then you may want to go to the hospital and get checked out for mental retardation, because we just fucking talked about Freddy and how that's exactly what he does, quite literally with the exact same movement pattern as well. I want everybody to listen closely with me, because this is a big tip for anybody wanting to make or that is currently making a FNAF game. Please, for the love of God, unless your game has an ungodly amount of characters, do not under any circumstance make 2 characters do the exact same thing. Actually, fuck it. Never make 2 characters do the exact same thing, because literally, what is even the point of that? And I do want to be clear, there is a big difference between having 2 identical mechanics and having 2 different characters interact with them. A perfect example is Bonnie and Chica from FNAF 1. They both go to a door and you just need to close it. However, the key difference here is that the only reason they're identical is because you have 2 identical mechanics. Those mechanics being the doors. So having 2 characters that do the exact same thing works and makes sense. A good example of what doesn't make sense is 90% of the characters from Five Nights at Freddy's 2 that all use the mask mechanic. That is a single mechanic that everyone uses. Therefore, it is boring as fuck and bad as fuck, and you shouldn't do that because holy shit, it's so boring. I don't understand what makes people think having multiple characters do the exact same thing is at all interesting in any way at all, because it just isn't. Maybe you could make an argument that having a boss character that does what every character does is an exception, but I still think that even that boss mechanic is becoming way too overused now. But maybe I'm just an old cynical man, who knows? One more thing about this night before we move on to night 4 is that still at this point, you'll notice that this game is incredibly easy, hardly having to do much at all, really only having the 2 hallway animatronics move quickly. But I promise you, it's going to change. We all know I wouldn't be talking about this game if it didn't. I don't talk about boring stinkers unless there's a really good reason to. Night 4 introduces the final 2 threats this game has to offer, bringing the total to 8, and they both suck dick and I hate them. But we'll talk about that in a second. All right, 1 second is up. Let's talk about them. The first one I want to bring up is Spring Foxy, because I guess there's a spring version of every character in this game except for Chica, because she's a woman and we all hate women here. Spring Foxy, thankfully, does something different from the other characters and introduces a new mechanic. However, do not let that fool you. In no way does that mean that his mechanic is at all interesting in any way, because it most certainly is not. Hold up, Dxtr. Didn't we already talk about Spring Foxy? No, dumbass. We talked about normal Foxy, and no, Spring Foxy is also not the Foxy that's behind us. So who is that Foxy, you might be asking? How about you suck the piss out of my dick? How does that sound, huh? Spring Foxy's goal is to go through your vents. However, he doesn't do it in the way that the other vent characters do. He goes through the middle vent on camera 12. This vent, as you'll notice, has no door to close. So what exactly do we have to do if we can't stop him from getting into the office? The answer is load around into the chamber, point it at your head, and paint the ceiling. I lied, of course that's not what you do. It's fucking Foxy, bro. Do you think this game was about to get creative? Because it wasn't. All you have to do is wait for Spring Foxy to make it to the vent in your office and hold your flashlight on him until his corny is hurt and he scampers away like a scamper. Very similar to how a runner runs and a fisher fishes. What the fuck did I just write? Like what does that mean? Like a fisher? Am I retarded? Okay, whatever. So yeah, while Spring Foxy might have a new mechanic in this game, he in no way is interesting. However, this does add another direction you now have to constantly check. And while even on night 4, this game isn't very hard, once it ramps up, you'll really be wishing Rip-Off Piss Foxy wasn't existent in this game. But for now, let's move on to night 5. Just kidding, we still have another character to talk about. Did you forget that? I bet you didn't. I bet you're probably sleeping right now. So adorable. Thanks for giving me watch time. It makes me very happy. Mwah. The other threat introduced on this night is, of course, Fredbear. Let's just hope that this game doesn't follow the trend of literally every other FNAF game that uses Fredbear as the main character and decides to make his mechanic easily the most boring and uninspired of the whole cast. Hate to burst your bubble, but of course Fredbear is easily the most boring character ever designed. Wouldn't you want your main character to be the most interesting? I feel like you would, but no. Here we are about to talk about a character that could put you to sleep with how fucking boring he is. Fredbear's goal is to attack you through the large hallway, probably because his big, fat, stinky, sweaty, ugly, slimy, greasy, grimy, pungent, putrid, rancid poop dick, shardy, farty, large and hearty, smelly, icky, huge, stink, dicky belly is so large and rotund, it's the only area of the entire building he can fit through. Also, I'm not gonna lie, this version of Fredbear kind of reminds me of those animatronics you'd see in one of those FNAF World Challenge slop videos. You know, those thumbnails that all look the exact same. I can just picture it now. A scared-looking, drawn, chibi version of Fredbear on the left, an overly blurry screenshot of a battle from FNAF World as the background, and 3 FNAF World battle buttons on the side with pixel font in each of them saying something like, way too hard. And hard is in red to really let you know that it's about to be hard. Anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, talking about boring old Fredbear. Fredbear, as I've mentioned, will attack you through the main hallway, except this time around the endoskeleton won't work. Why is that, you might be asking? Well, I managed to decipher what the phone guy said, and it only took me a half an hour because, once again, it's fucking impossible to hear this guy. The reason why the endoskeleton method doesn't work on Fredbear is because he's too big and will be able to see around the endoskeleton. I'm sorry. Not good enough of a reason because both Chica and Freddy could both just pull this bullshit right here. But anyways, I guess let's pretend like that just makes sense for a moment. What do we need to do to defend ourselves from Fredbear? Well, Phone Guy says we have to hide our face. Awesome. So we can just turn around, right? Well, no, that gets you killed. What you have to do is just put on the fucking mask, and that's literally it. Oh my god. How uncreative can we be, guys? This is insanity. The main threat of the entire game uses a mechanic so fucking boring it's forgettable. Why? Just why? Why, when devs are making a game, do they just insist on making your characters so fucking boring. You wonder why people don't stroke your game's dick like they do with games like Juniors or Tycoon Sons or Locked at Freddy's. Do you want to know the real reason? It's not because you just got unlucky with people seeing your game. It's not because another big release happened to come out around the same time. It's not because a YouTuber shit all over it and now nobody wants to play it. It's not because you're just a starving artist and people have yet to see your talent. No, it's because your game is boring horseshit. I've seen plenty of games worse than this one. This game is nowhere even close to the top 50 worst FNAF games I've ever played. I could make a whole video about those. No, because this game looks how it does is the only reason I haven't snapped my fucking monitor in half. You can't just make shit and expect people to eat it up. Put some fucking thought into it. We as the FNAF community have some of the most talented and creative people I've ever met. When we try, we make amazing things. But I'll be honest, I can see why other communities don't take us seriously at all. It's because of the overwhelming amount of dog shit fucking degradable slop. Do something different! Try something new! Think outside of the box! Do something you've never seen before! Make something that you would play yourself! Because I guarantee that half of these fuck-ass devs are just throwing some shit together in hopes that it's played by Fusion Z Gamer or Dawko. Be creative! Please! That's all anybody wants. People want to see something new, or at least something old with a new twist. You don't need to make something as high quality as the games that are being made by the Radiant team. Look at Five Nights at Wario's. I personally dislike those games, but they're not garbage, and they were made by one person who just had some cool ideas. We need more people like Triple Wario, because games like this that are just a copy of an overused idea are making the entire community look lazy. Anyways, let's move on to Night 5. Now, I'll be honest with you guys. I never actually beat Night 5, and there's a good reason for it. For those of you unaware, I've recently begun having a pretty serious health problem. I don't exactly know what it is yet, but it's been seriously affecting my ability to create videos the way that I want to be able to create them. I can't play games for more than 30 minutes max without getting incredibly sick. Horrible migraines that last for hours, nausea that makes it impossible to eat or drink without throwing up. It really has been miserable for me the last month or so. That's why you'll notice Dxtr Black, Gray, and Blue have stopped posting videos. I just can't make them right now. Even writing Dxtr White videos has been getting incredibly complicated for me since I can't look at my screen and write for more than a half hour without needing to sit in darkness for 2 hours for my migraine to go away. I'm on several medications and I've been in and out of the doctors constantly, but nobody can tell me what's wrong with me, and I don't see it getting better anytime soon. And with the sheer amount of whipping around you have to do on Night 5 and especially Night 6, there's just no physical way I'd be able to complete it without seriously hurting myself. As embarrassing as that is to say, I'm now a FNAF YouTuber that can't really play FNAF anymore. And that sucks. But enough being all sad and retarded, we've got a FNAF game to complain about. Night 5 obviously doesn't add anything new to the overall gameplay loop. However, it's on this night where the game really starts to amp up the difficulty. Like, by a lot. The characters must have all snorted a line of Nesquik before we clocked in this time around, because it's literally some of the most outrageous looking gameplay I've ever seen in my life. Huge shout out to Indie Fuel. He's the guy who's been playing in the footage you've been seeing throughout this entire video. He's an awesome guy, and you should totally go subscribe. But that's not where the worst of it begins. To talk about the worst and most degrading bullshit this game has to offer comes in the form of what treason takes place in Night 6. Just take a look at your screen right now. The sheer amount of movement going on in this night is completely ridiculous. And don't even get me started on the amount of sound cues that you'll be hearing. Take a listen. And that is what this game looks like and and sounds like throughout the entire night. And you want to hear the best part? A little piece of information I haven't mentioned up until this point. The nights in this game are long as fuck. I'm talking like close to 9 minutes long. It's completely unnecessary. To go from 9 minutes of the most boring shit you've ever played in your life to 9 minutes of the most stressful, headache-inducing shit you've ever seen in your life is a wild ride. And do you want to know what you get for completing night 6? What is it that you get to enjoy? Well, if your answer to that question was absolutely fucking nothing, then you'd be correct. No final cutscene, no story, nothing. Just booted back to the title screen. Go look at the extras menu, fucker. Like, excuse me? What are you talking about? It's not 2014 anymore, bro. Give us something interesting. Maybe there is actually some baller lore in this game throughout the phone calls. But you want to know who doesn't know? Me. And you want to know why I don't know? Because once again, for like the 90th time, I couldn't hear a fucking word the phone guy was saying throughout this game. Help a brother out, please. I'm like a starving child over here begging for some more, and I'm just getting short piled down my throat. But yeah, that's seriously all this game has to offer. From what I could tell, no secrets, no hidden mini games, nothing. Maybe I'm just spoiled from all the newer fan games doing insane shit with a bunch of post-game content, but post-game content is what I love. I personally think the post-game of any game should be the most enjoyable part. I always like to look back to Pokemon games for an example of that. Take Pokemon Black and White 2. The post-game in those games are some of the most enjoyable shit I've ever played. Or even looking at FNAF 2 for a more relatable reference. The post-game in FNAF 2 was great. If you take out the fact that the gameplay loop is garbage, the pre-built custom night challenges, unlocking the plushies on your desk, it's fun. It feels enjoyable and really scratches that completionist brain I have. But this game just has nothing. It almost feels like the dev had other stuff planned for this game, but either ran out of time or ran out of passion to get it done. But what do I know? I just complain about FNAF games. It's not like I've ever made my own or anything. Let's just not look at that, okay? But with that, that's all Fredbear's backstory has to offer. Overall, I think this game looks nice, and I think the atmosphere is good, but that's about where my positive feedback for this game ends. This game just feels so uninspired, and for a game that's literally named after the backstory of one of the most integral characters to the FNAF story, there sure is literally no backstory given about that character whatsoever. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this is actually one of the best FNAF games you've ever seen and thinks it needs way more recognition? Let me know in the comments below. In my Fangs Pizza and Theater video, I asked you guys what the most infuriating FNAF game you ever played was and why, and my favorite answer was this one by J4X1. I'm not even gonna say what they said, just read it. It's obvious. Bad game. Today, I have the misfortune of telling you about a game that made me so incredibly angry during my playthrough that I've avoided making this very Dxtr White video for the last several months. I have not wanted to touch this game ever since I finished playing it, but here I am. I noticed that I've only been covering games that have been making me happy recently. Games that don't make my blood vessels explode. Well, I figured today I'd switch it up a little bit and talk about a game that makes me so irrationally angry I can barely breathe just thinking about it. Let's waste no more time and jump into the absolute dumpster fire of a world that is Fangs Pizza and Theater. Before the game even begins, we're thrown into Event, with seemingly something standing outside of it. I personally find it fitting that we're sitting in Event because that's personally where I will be crawling to die after finishing this video, which, by the way, I will tell you, I cannot wait for. I'm only 3 paragraphs into this and I'm already dreading writing the rest of this video. I played this game so long ago that I've mostly wiped it from my memory, so now I'm forced to watch somebody else play it and relive my traumas like a patient with PTSD. But with that, we're thrown into night 1 and we can talk about the tools at our disposal. And how much I fucking hate them. To start, we obviously have our camera system. Of course, it's a FNAF game, so that's pretty par for the course. On top of that, we have a flashlight. However, this flashlight does not work the way a flashlight normally works. No. No, that would be too easy and make poor little Dexter too happy. Instead, they had to make this flashlight literally worse than Satan. While yes, this flashlight does work as a normal flashlight, it will also be our main form of defense throughout this entire game. So get used to using it constantly. But we'll talk more about that once we start talking about the threats this piece of shit bullshit fuck-ass game introduces. The flashlight's battery will decrease very fast for reasons I'll talk about a bit later. For now, let's talk about what you have to do when this flashlight gets low on battery. Well, I'm sure you've noticed just from the footage I'm showing you on screen right now, but the office we're in is pretty big. Turning around completely, we'll find a shelf with several batteries on it. Clicking on one of these piles of batteries will completely fill our flashlight, but we obviously only have a limited amount of batteries, so we can't be retarded about it. The last thing I want to talk about before we dive into the characters this night introduces are the 3 entrances to our office. The left vent, the window in front of us, and the right door. That's really it. There's no way to close any of them. They're just entrances. Okay, moving on. Night 1 introduces 2 threats, and both of them go to show off the worst mechanic this game has to offer, in my opinion, that being the main fucking mechanic. Maybe I'm just salty today, I don't know, but I really didn't like this game, as I'm sure you could have already been able to tell. Let's start from the simplest character, Faye. Faye acts as this game's introductory character. She's so incredibly easy to understand, but don't let that fool you. I've lost several fucking times to this piece of shit, so don't get it twisted. Faye will begin on the east stage. From there, she'll move to the dining room, to the bar where you'll be able to find me for the next week until it's time for me to write the next white video. Then, from the bar, she'll move to the hallway, wherein directly after she'll show up outside of our office window. And this is also where the first ass-clenching mechanic gets introduced. You can't see characters in your office unless you flash your light on them. Now, is this a problem by itself? No, of course not. Not at all. However, when your main mechanic is your flashlight and you need to waste power constantly checking bullshit, then it makes me piss an entire fire hydrant out of my urethra. Anyways, when you see Faye at your window, that's when it's time to act. And this is also where I get to talk about that silly little thing your flashlight does that I mentioned earlier. If you hold down your flashlight, it'll slowly charge and then release a light so bright you'd think a third nuke was dropped on Japan. Bam! Bitch, the light of God on your ass. Obviously, Faye doesn't fucking like it when you literally put the sun in her eyes, so she backs off and goes back on stage. However, using this big mega flash wastes a bunch of power on your flashlight, so it's likely you'll have to grab a battery. Dexter, that doesn't really sound so bad. I don't know why you're complaining. Well, just sit back. If you haven't figured out what this game is about to do to my organs, you will soon find out, so stick around. The second threat introduced on this night is the main attraction, Fang. Fang is everything you hate about Faye, except even worse because he has more choices. Typical man, am I right, ladies? Huh? No? Okay, moving on. Fang will begin on the east stage with Faye. From there, he'll move to the dining room. However, at this point, he has 2 options for what he can do next. Let's cover his first route first, wherein he'll go from the dining room to the restrooms and from the restrooms to the hallway. Want to hear something awesome about him going to the hallway? You can't fucking see him when he's there. Why? Because fuck your mother in the face, that's why. From the From the hallway, he'll jump into the vents, which thankfully you can hear. And then, finally, he will be in the vent entrance of your office. Of course, you won't be able to see him without your flashlight, and just like Faye, when you see him, drop little boy on him and he'll go away. Alright, time to talk about Fang's second route, where he goes from the dining area to the bar. Once again, you will notice I am still present there because I've drank so much to the point where the bartender took my keys and I'm sitting there thinking, bitch, I can't leave. I'm miles away from home and you took my keys, so I guess I'm staying the night. After that, Fang moves to the hall corner, and from there he appears at our office's doorway. Do you want to take a guess what we do when he's there? That's right, we drop Fat Man on his ass and he'll go away. Are you starting to notice a pattern here and why it might be possibly incredibly frustrating, especially on later nights when the AI really kicks it into high gear? If not, you'll soon learn. But that's all this night has to offer. Of course, we also get a post-night minigame to play. Hooray! I never actually got any minigames in my playthrough. I'm not really sure why, and I don't give enough of a fuck to figure it out if I'm being honest with you. So let's just talk about the minigame. In it, we have to talk to our boss, which is this thick rabbit. And bro, I'm not gonna lie, I'd suck the cum out of her dad's dick just to get the recipe because... And bro, I'm not gonna lie, I'd suck the cum out of her dad's dick just to get the recipe because hot damn, I'd go crazy for this thing. She tells us to take out the trash like a good little boy, and I get down on all fours and do whatever she tells me to. Ruff, ruff! While looking for garbage cans, we walk into the bathroom and get teleported into some grandma's varicose veins. I'm not really sure why we're here, but there's shadow children running around and flashing hallucinations. After walking around the most nauseating place I've ever been in my entire life, we find this thing. What is it? I literally have no idea. But after we touch it, we're teleported back to the restaurant where we can find the rest of the garbage and finish up our shift by talking to mommy, and finally night one comes to a close. I really don't like how long it took me to talk about this night because I still have so much more to talk about, and I really would like to go back to forgetting that this game even exists. So let's just keep trucking through it. Starting night 2, we have another cutscene. This time, instead of being an event, we appear under a table or something. Who cares? We hear some footsteps, see whatever the hell this is at the end, and finally we're dropped into the next night section. During the phone call, we learn that the owner is trying to sell off the company. Last night's phone call told us about some new competitor restaurant that's doing better, probably Fazbear's if I had to guess. Who cares about the owner's problems? My problems matter to me a lot more, and I think that's a life lesson we could all take to heart. Mind your own fucking business. Only one new threat is introduced on this night, Melody the Bat. Thankfully, Melody acts as more of an annoyance character than an actual threat, and you really shouldn't have to worry too much about her. Melody will start on the west stage. From there, she'll move to the dining room, then the restrooms. Then she'll go to the hallway, to the hallway's corner, to the ordering station, then either the kitchen or the bar to visit me. Finally, depending on where she went, she'll either go to the parts and service or the dining room, and from there she'll jump back to the bathrooms. So, what is she actually doing all this time? Well, she has a chance to randomly attack one of the cameras. When she's attacking one, you'll get a notification in the corner of your cameras telling you so. You'll have to find the camera she's on and stare at her. If you don't, then she'll knock that camera out for the rest of the night. But get this, it really doesn't fucking matter. Her find her on the camera bullshit is pretty much nullified by the fact you really only need to watch 3 cameras throughout the entire game. So if she's not attacking any of those 3, then it doesn't really matter. Let them get fucked, nobody cares. Fang and Faye ramp up quite a bit on this night, so I don't really appreciate that. But with that, that's all night 2 really has to offer, and we can move on to the post-night 2 minigame. I'm very excited to see the Rabussy again. I can't lie, I'm rocking about a half chub right now just thinking about it. In this minigame, our Dom boss tells us to mop up the floors. I'll literally do anything you ask me, please. I don't think you understand. I'm such a degenerate. Anyways, fuck actually doing that. Behind the counter, we find a weird looking chair. Touch it and it'll take us back to Vane's world. If anybody gets that reference, I love you, by the way. Touch that weird looking thing again and we go back to the restaurant. Finish mopping and we can move on to night 3. Come on, let's keep it moving. Night 3 begins with another cutscene. In it, we're in a hallway this time, and we see this very tall, nice looking gentleman at the end of the hallway. Very cool. However, unfortunately, I literally don't care at all. Please, let's just move on to the night section. I really don't care about what the phone guy has to say on this night, but if you guys do, he basically tells us a story about how Fang was stuck in the vents and they spent over an hour trying to get him out. Whoopity-doo, suck me off. Who's introduced on this night, and is it literally the worst character on the face of the planet Earth? Yes. The answer to that question is yes. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the literal cancer of the world, Nubs the bear. Nubs is by far the most frustrating character in this entire game, and not even necessarily from his mechanic alone, but specifically from an anecdote I have from my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Nubs begins on the west stage. From there, he'll move to the dining room. Then he'll go to either parts and service or the entrance. Then the bar to greet me once again. Yes, I still haven't left. Then from there, he'll either go to the hallway or the ordering station, and finally, he'll enter the vent. If Nubs ever gets to your vent, there's no way to stop him because he will be crawling all the way inside of your butt. God damn it! Fuck me and my... what the fuck? I didn't see him anywhere. What the fuck, bro? I didn't see him. So, how do you stop him from doing that? Well, you can catch Nubs on two of the cameras he goes through, the hallway and the ordering station. If you stare at him for a few seconds, he'll reset. However, this is where literally Death Incarnate himself comes out in the form of Nubs. This game literally does not tell you which camera Nubs can appear in, and Nubs, being a very dark character, is incredibly hard to notice on the cameras if you don't know where to look. And on top of that, he also hides, making it even harder to see him. So a mix of all of this leads to you literally dying to Nubs because you have no way of knowing which fucking cameras he can appear on without hours and hours of trial and error. This is the bullshit I went through during my playthrough. This motherfucker right here is why I never wanted to touch this game again. This piece of shit spit in my asshole, ruptured my spleen, caused my appendix to burst, and gave me a brain aneurysm. I hate this guy so much. He's not even challenging to deal with. It's just a pain in the dick that it took me what felt like 4 fucking months to figure all of his bullshit out. I think I'd rather get a urethral swab than ever play this game again, specifically because of this asshole right here. Play the game yourself. Fuck you. I'm not even gonna tell you which cameras he appears on. I hate all of you. Fuck. And of course, if you couldn't guess, both Fang and Faye have been ingesting cocaine like a suppository, so they're absolutely cracked out of their minds. Dude, I don't even want to. I actually just don't want to play this. Riding me like a bike throughout the entire night makes the process of looking for Nubs the most foreskin ripping process on the planet. Damn. Anyways, rocking a full chub, we can move on to the minigame. Master tells us that we have to prep the tables, but we instead choose to find a broom and teleport to hell and touch a weird looking thing instead. Afterwards, we do snap back to reality and do what she says in hopes that she steps on me with her sweaty feet. Jesus Christ, what am I writing? This entire video has just been like disgusting line after disgusting line. I hope you freaks are happy. Let's move on to night 4. I don't know where we are, but that really tall guy is watching us again. All leaned over looking ass, spring Bonnie looking ass. I personally want to know why we're always on the floor in these cutscenes. It's a little ridiculous. Anyways, on to the night section. Guys, why does it feel like I'm always being tortured? Night 4 introduces a threat that is literally so annoying, so teeth gritting, so fist clenching. It's honestly impressive how the devs of this game just continue to make each night progressively more and more frustrating every single time without fail. Night 4 introduces Fang Sr. We've barely been introduced to any characters so far, and already we're repeating ourselves, so that's not a good sign. Fang Sr. is quite literally, probably without a shadow of a doubt, the most annoying character from any FNAF game I've ever played. I'm seriously not exaggerating one bit. I'm completely serious. I unironically think I would rather play the entire Jolly series again than this game ever again. I'm so incredibly dead ass, it's not even funny. Fang Sr. has perfect synergy with Fang in literally the worst way imaginable. Fang Sr. can only attack from one entrance, but he defies all logic, and I hate him. He starts in parts and service. From there, he already starts doing whatever the fuck it is he wants. He'll go to either the entrance, the dining room, or the bar. 3 choices, who gives a shit? Then he'll either go to the ordering station or the kitchen. Finally, he'll hit the hallway corner, and that's when he does it. That's when he goes to your office door, just like Fang. However, unlike Fang, you can't shine your light at him. If even for a moment, a fraction of a second, even the smallest beam of light touches his eyes, you are completely fucked, and he'll make you arch your back like a college girl who left her long-term boyfriend to live the college experience. We all know what that's really code for. When Fang Sr. enters your office, you have to stand completely still. He'll stand in your office for literally 100,000 years before finally leaving. During this time, you can't open your cameras, you can't turn around, you can't flash your flashlight, you can't even turn your fucking head. You literally move even 1 inch and this guy will make you a part of the Me Too movement. So, if you haven't figured out what the two major problems are with this character, allow me to explain them to you. To start, let's talk about the obvious one. He sits in your office for so long that by the time he finally leaves, you'll have lost track of literally every other character, and there will probably be someone ready to be flashed, or Nubs will have made it into your vent. Wasn't fast enough, bro. Seniors was fucking my shit. He was fucking my shit up. Who knows? Who knows? That doesn't even matter anymore. And you can't even be good at this mechanic. And that's the most infuriating part. When Fang Sr. enters your office, you're basically just dropping to your knees and praying the game doesn't skull fuck you. Let's talk about the other glaring and much more frustrating issue with this character. We have to talk a bit more about Fang himself first. Tracking Fang really isn't necessary and is honestly not worth your time because it will leave you with more cameras you'll need to check when Melody is attacking. So it's much better to just quickly flash the vent and doorway every once in a while to check if Fang is there. But of course, now we have a character who, if we even flash for a millisecond, will kill us. So get ready to accidentally flash Fang Sr. over 12,000 times trying to beat this piece of shit. And we're only on night 4. It's going to get harder. Much, much harder. Like a shit ton harder. And not even skill-wise harder. Just dick-swinging Grandpa Fang limping his gimp ass into your room at random harder. During night 4's post-night minigame, we have to fill up cups because the customers are thirsty. I am personally thirsty for our boss, but I think I've made my stance on her objectively clear. Who cares about doing that? Touch whatever this thing is, go to the death world, touch this other thing I don't know the name of, finish filling the cups, and we can move on to night 5, aka Razor Blades in My Water Night. Night 5's cutscene has us yet again under a table in what appears to be parts and service. I think this robot on the floor in front of us is the character we've seen over the last few nights, but I can't be sure. Night 5 introduces nothing new, thank God. However, it does serve to be literally one of the most RNG-ridden, frustrating nights from any FNAF game I've ever played in my entire life. I would rather attempt post-shift 2 for an entire day. I cannot describe to you how much I did not enjoy this game. I almost feel bad constantly ripping on it, but to be fair, it kept constantly ripping my asshole. Since I don't have any new threats to bring up, and if I continue to shout I might go into cardiac arrest, I have nothing left to talk about aside from the post-night minigame. This time around we need to touch a barrel in the first room we're in. From there we touch the weird thing in the death area and then go to our future dungeon master. She tells us to bring the cake to the main room and we walk into the kitchen to do exactly that exactly then. Upon bringing the cake to the main room, both my wife and all of the children just stare at us. Upon talking to my owner, all she says is thanks, and the minigame abruptly ends. I don't want to tell you about the cutscene we see next. Just take a look. So yeah, that's actually just terrifying and one of the most disgusting and uncomfortable things I've seen in my entire life. The thought of hiding from one of these robots and it being intelligent enough to find you is unironically one of the scariest things of all time. And for all of the shit I've been giving this game throughout this whole video, I will say this cutscene is one of the most dread-inducing things I've ever seen in a FNAF game. So hats off for that. Oh yeah, one thing I should have mentioned that I just fucking didn't is that the only way you can get the post-night minigames is by finding a floppy disk during the night sections. So yeah, I'll just throw that in right here because I'm lazy. You're welcome. But with that, we can talk about night 6, by far the most interesting nights in this entire game. And yes, it does still make me pee blood. If you've done all the weird minigame blood butt touching, then a new character will be active on this night, that being Miss Willow. Miss Willow is an owl and acts as this game's boss fight night. And a boss fight she really is. Except instead of a fight to survive her, it's a fight to prevent myself from putting a certain metal object to my temple. Miss Willow is literally just a find them on the camera character. I'm not kidding. That's literally her only fucking mechanic. She'll say, "Find me," and you have to do exactly that. Except she does this a lot, in very quick succession, constantly, throughout the whole night. This is not gameplay. This is torture. If you fail to find her 3 times in a row, she'll randomly appear in any of the 3 entrances to your office, where you'll have to flash her to make her reset. Except the window of time to do this is so astronomically low, it might as well not even exist. I cannot describe to you how frustrating and bullshit this boss fight is. I hate it. I never beat it. I didn't get to do it in my playthrough over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, but I did attempt it while writing this video. And yeah, no, I'll pass, thanks. Fuck this night and fuck this game. After completing the boss fight, there's one more minigame to talk about. In it, all we have to do is follow Willow around the building. She talks some bullshit about a her, not explaining who that is. I don't care, guys. Here's all of the text she says in the cutscene. Read it if you give a shit. I don't care enough. I'm so done at this point. Afterwards, the minigame ends. Turning around in our seat, we see that Willow has somehow gotten into our house. Her face cracks open and 2 small hands grab it from the inside, splitting the face open and jump scaring us, which I'm praying to God just killed us right there on the spot. But even after that, we're still not done. No, this game needs to keep a chokehold on me for just a little bit longer. We get one final cutscene where we're back in the vent for some reason. We hear a woman crying and Willow appears in front of the vent again, and we wake up from a fucking dream. Are you literally ripping my scrotum off? A dream game? Really? Fuck you. Literally fuck you and fuck your entire face. I hate you. That's pretty much all Fang's Pizza and Theater has to offer. There is an additional mode called Golden Days, which, since we're here, I guess I'll quickly talk about it. Five Nights at Fang's The Golden Days is an older title in the Fang series. This appears to be just that game as a director's cut packed into this game as well. I never played it for myself, and I actually didn't even know this existed until doing research for this video. The version in this game consists of only one night and only has Fang, Faye, and Nubs. Except it only seems like Fang can move. He'll wander through the building before appearing in your vent. Just hold your flashlight on him and he'll fuck off. From watching Indie Fuel, my guardian angel, play this night is so slow and nobody even moved until like 4 a.m., so this just seems awful. The only reason I choose to mention this game is the minigame that takes place after you beat it. In it, you play as a large rabbit, maybe the one from the final cutscene, and you're in someone's house. You're holding something, but I can't quite tell what it is. But we walk out of the house and get surrounded by some bullies. They say we have rabbit ears. They say nobody loves nerds, which is literally just the biggest lie of all time. Ladies can confirm. They tell us to shut up and that they never want to see our face again, which tells me that this character is either a child that got infused with a rabbit suit, maybe, or it's just a kid wearing a rabbit suit. I have no idea. I don't even know any characters' names as to who this could be. And lucky me, this video is long enough, so I don't have to care. But with that, that's all Fang's Pizza and Theater has to offer. This is truly the most infuriating FNAF game I have ever played in my life. I truly do not believe I will ever play a game that actually makes me so unhappy again in my life. I remember filming this game and how miserable I got every time I had to boot it up. I'm so glad it's over. I'm happy I finally got around to writing this video so this game would stop haunting my nightmares, and I hope you guys enjoyed me getting mad about it. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me? Or do you think this game is actually the best FNAF game known to mankind? Let me know in the comments below. In my Freddy Files video, I asked you guys if you were to make a FNAF game, what would be the most important thing to consider while making it? And my favorite answer was this one by It Is Never Go Jover. They said literally every mechanic that makes me want to eat a pencil. So how about you just kick rocks, Buster Brown? Uniqueness in FNAF games. Something that isn't the most common thing in the world. I'm sure as FNAF players, we can all agree that something interesting that we've never seen before coming around is something we don't see all too often. But you better believe we suck it up whenever we get the chance to sink our big meaty claws into it. The game we'll be talking about today is a bit older. Being created 5 years ago, I'm honestly honestly surprised I had never heard of it before, as it truly is one of the most unique FNAF fan games I've ever talked about on this channel, with a unique art style, interesting yet incredibly confusing story, and a mixture of a bunch of different game styles and mechanics. Join me today as we dive into the intricately crafted world of the Freddy Files. The Freddy Files is actually broken up into chapters instead of nights, and from the sounds of it, I'm pretty sure that each chapter of the game is 1 hour of the one night that takes place during this game. Upon starting the game, we're greeted to an opening cutscene. Our character is on the phone with 911, saying that while working, the door to the building closed and locked itself so he can't get out. The dispatcher said the police are on their way, but it will take several hours for them to get there, which, by the way, is bullshit. This restaurant is presumably in a city, or at least a town, so how is it going to take the police hours to get there? Regardless, we still have to finish our shift anyways, so we figure it's not a big deal. The dispatcher makes a point to us to not enter any unauthorized areas, which I personally find weird. And with that, we're spat into the first chapter where we're greeted with some exposition. Fazbear Entertainment started their first business with Fredbear's Family Diner, a successful business that took over the market for 5 years. However, a few months later, a child was known to be murdered by the mascot, Fredbear. Later, 4 other children went missing during the incident as well. The police searched the entire establishment for any signs of the children, but to no avail. The co-worker of the diner did not negotiate either. The case was then closed after a second failed search, April 26th, 1983. And with that, we're ready to begin the chapter. And this is where you'll notice this game is not your typical FNAF game, which is exactly why I wanted to cover it. This game, while yes, has a survival system like Five Nights at Freddy's, it's more of a top-down free roam than anything else. Whoa, what the fuck? Whoa. The point of this first chapter is to unlock a door that we're not supposed to unlock. It's an unauthorized area, so I have no idea why we're doing this despite the dispatcher literally just telling us not to. This chapter serves as an escape room, which I actually really like. And of course, there are some threats that are trying to stop us from completing it. So let's talk about those 2 guys first. The first threat introduced in this chapter is Golden Freddy. His mechanic is very simple. As you can see, we are equipped with a flashlight and a fear meter. If our flashlight is off, our fear meter will slowly increase. With the light on, the fear will go back down. So keeping this light on is obviously something we're going to want to do. Golden Freddy directly counters that. He's a ghost character that moves through walls, and he's very fast. If you ever see Golden Freddy near you, you need to shut off your flashlight and make sure he doesn't run into you by dodging out of the way. If he touches you, you're obviously dead. Something I do want to note that I don't really like about this section, and Golden Freddy specifically, there is a lot of reading in this game, mainly in the form of just interacting with things. And Golden Freddy will still be active while you're reading something, and you can't turn your flashlight on or off while you have a dialogue box up. So be prepared to die very frequently because of poor timings like this. What on earth? It's a key. Whatever hiding in here doesn't open the door. But fuck, dude. Can't do that while I'm fucking reading. The second threat introduced here is Shadow Freddy.
I'm Shadow Freddy, I'm so awesome and black. I'm black. I got white eyes, I'm black, I'm Shadow Freddy.
Shadow Freddy, while being awesome and black, is a much more stressful character to deal with as he's a lot more random. Occasionally, you will hear him growl. When you do, you'll notice that your fear will start increasing even if your flashlight is on. This signals to you that you need to go find him somewhere in the building that he'll teleport to at random. When you find him, all you need to do is hold your flashlight on him and he'll go away, wherein your fear will start to decrease again. Now, these 2 together, in all honesty, are not that difficult to deal with. So let's talk about what exactly we have to do to open that stuck door. To start, near the stage you'll find a vent. Interacting with it will tell you that something is inside, but you can't reach it. Moving down to the kitchen, inside you'll find a safe that requires a code that we don't have. Just outside of the kitchen are some random planks and sticks for some reason. Using one of the sticks, we can go back over to the vent and fish out the item, which we find is a key. This key, unfortunately, doesn't unlock the door, but it does unlock something else. Moving down to the office, inside there there is a locked box. Using the key we got from the vent, we can open it. Inside, there are several animatronic heads, but more importantly, there's a remote. Using this remote, we can turn on the monitor in our office, which will then display the code to the safe. Now, obviously, I could ask several questions as to why things are happening the way they are. Why was there wood on the floor? Why was there a key in a vent? Why was the remote to the TV locked in a box? Why does the TV just have the code to a safe? But this is clearly just a puzzle escape room game, so weird shit like this is just kind of par for the course. Continuing, now knowing the code, we input it into the safe and get a hammer. Using this hammer, we figure we can break the locked door down, so we head over to do exactly that. And that's when we're thrown into a much more FNAF feeling minigame. During this minigame, we obviously have to break down the door. However, Golden Freddy will be attacking us the entire time. While we pound on the door, he will slowly approach us from behind to beat on our bottom. Occasionally, we'll have to turn around and hold our flashlight on him to make him back up into the darkness. I personally found that pounding on the door 15 times is the most you can do to stay safe without Golden Freddy golden showering you. Do this enough times and the door will open, and we see the following cutscene. So yeah, we stumble upon the body of 3 of the dead children. Truly gruesome. However, I also have to ask why there quite literally is nothing inside of this massive room. Who knows? We reflect on what we saw and realize that 4 kids went missing, yet we only saw 3. Before we can think about it more, we hear the rest of the characters in the building activate. And knowing our lives are about to get a lot more difficult, we can move on to Chapter 2. Chapter 2 moves much more into a typical FNAF game. When we load in, we find ourselves in an office. We know from the last chapter that all of the characters have activated, so now we have to hunker down and defend ourselves. So let's go over the tools at our disposal. To start, if we turn around, we'll find our cameras. They're just cameras. Nothing crazy to talk about here. Turning back in front of us is where things start to matter. To start, you'll notice on the left and right doors, we'll be able to set off an alarm system. When you use these alarms, your computer's RAM will increase. Now, unlike actual computer RAM, once you stop using the alarm, the RAM usage will not go back down, which again, doesn't make any sense because that's not how RAM works, but whatever. What you have to do is manually delete the RAM by holding the delete RAM button on your monitor. That doesn't really make sense, but it's clear the dev isn't very tech savvy, but that's okay. Also on our monitor are 2 more alarms, Alarm 15 and Alarm 24. We're not going to worry about Alarm 24 right now. Alarm 15 is an alarm that plays directly in front of you. The phone guide describes this area of the building as outside, so I'm imagining it's literally a window to outside of the building. You just can't tell because it's dark as fuck. Same with the other 2 alarms, it will also increase your RAM usage. Now let's talk about the threats this chapter introduces. Fun fact, there's 3 of them: Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. I'm going to talk about Bonnie and Chica at the same time since they do the exact same thing. They will try to make it to either of your doors respectively. Bonnie attacks the left, Chica attacks the right. Once they enter your office, they will quite literally be directly in your fucking face, with their rank ass breath searing your nose hairs. All you have to do is hold the alarm on whichever side they went to and they will quickly leave. But there is one other path they both can take as well, and that's to the window in front of you. When they're out there, play Alarm 15 and they will return right to outside of your door, where they will then soon enter your office, giving you little time to delete RAM between those moments. Freddy is the final threat introduced in this chapter, and he works much the same as Bonnie and Chica, with one major change that honestly makes him easier than the other 2 we've talked about already. When he enters your office, he'll stand directly in front of you, so you can actually play the alarm on either side and he will leave. The only other change he has from Bonnie and Chica is that you have to play the alarm on him for a lot longer. Just like them, he can also go to the window, but the same rules apply to him. Chapter 2 is really just an introduction night, and despite the fact that you can see Foxy on stage, he never activates, which really means you never have to check the cameras throughout this entire chapter. And on top of that, since Foxy didn't activate and we never used Alarm 24, something tells me that Chapter 3 will also be taking place in this office, so let's move on to that. So, turns out we're actually not on to chapter 3 quite yet. If you remember at the start of chapter 2, we saw 12 a.m. Well, at the beginning of this next section, we see 1 a.m., which would mean we're still currently in chapter 2. This hour is back to the top-down gameplay we saw in chapter 1. This time around, we see our character get absolutely fucking bodied by some random guy. Oh my god. Oh dear lord. Oh, he's dead. Oh, he's dead as fuck. He's dead as disco, bro. Dead as shit. He's Dunyan rings. In the note we get on this night, he says he kidnapped us to play a game, and we'll be playing with some minions. Fantastic. The gameplay of this night has us unlocking a door, which takes forever. Seriously, look at this. Oh my god. Really? So yeah. That's a lot of fun. While this is happening, we'll have to constantly be checking the doors to our left and our right. Going up to them, we can listen for growling. If we hear growling, all we have to do is run to the closet in the middle of the office and hide until they go away. However, if we stay in the closet for too long, we'll be killed by another character. Why am I getting raped from all angles today, huh? After we fully unlock the door, I fully expected this section to come to an end, but no. Not quite. Instead, we get thrown into a fucking Shadow Freddy boss fight. What the fuck? Whoa. What the fuck? Boss. And unironically, this boss fight is better than the only boss fight in Heartbound. But let's be honest, that's not very hard to beat. You'll have to dodge these little colored things, not really sure what the hell they're supposed to be, and then he'll start throwing pizzas at you, which are super not fun to dodge. These stupid pizzas were actually the only thing I took damage to in my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. And finally, he drops these things. I don't know what they are. At first I thought olives, but then I thought about it and that doesn't make any sense. Comment down below if you know what these things are. But after you complete the fight, you'll find the body of the child who supposedly possessed Freddy, and he bleeds on the floor, which would imply to me that the kid was alive and we just killed the fucking child. If that's the case, does that mean we're clinically insane? Maybe so. We learned that we were never allowed to tell the police about the missing kids because he brought us here? Or something. I'm not totally sure why we can't tell the police. My only guess is something along the lines of it'll look like we killed them all. I'm not really sure at the moment, but I'm sure we'll learn plenty more. For now, let's continue. Now we move on to the next section of this game. We're still in chapter 2, except now it's 1:30 a.m. That's right, we're really splitting this game up into as many pieces as we can, and I'm all for it. Unfortunately, there's literally nothing interesting for me to talk about during this section. We're back in the office area, except literally nothing has changed since the first time we played this. Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica move slightly faster, but nothing new is actually introduced. So let's move on to 2 a.m. 2 a.m. actually marks the beginning of chapter 3, which means we have something interesting to talk about. We learn that the building got shut down due to it being disgusting as fuck. Food all over the floor, little kid throw up down the backs of the robots, all the nasty shit. During this section, we play as a temporary janitor, so I guess we just have all the fucking jobs now, huh? Something you'll notice about this night as we talk about it is that even though, yes, we are a janitor, literally no cleaning happens whatsoever. Instead, all we do is fix a fucking elevator. As that would suggest, this section of the game takes place in an elevator. Our goal is to get to floor 5, but in order to do that, we first have to connect each floor to like a mainframe or something. I have no fucking idea, just roll with it. All this section consists of is basically looking at this fucking screen until this bar makes it to this square. Once it does, press the green button on the elevator to move to the next floor. Of course, it's not just that, as there is a threat trying to eat our butts the entire time. That threat being Withered Bonnie. I'm not going to dive into the possible reason as to why we see normal Bonnie during the next sections and Withered Bonnie now. Maybe we're not playing as the same character, maybe this section takes place during a different time, or fuck it, maybe Bonnie just took his fucking face off. Who really cares? While you're connecting the elevator, Bonnie will slowly get closer and closer to you. Once he gets too close, all you have to do is close the elevator door until you hear him back off. Then go back to doing what you were doing. While the door is closed, it will drain power, but considering you only have to close the door on Bonnie for like 4 seconds, there is literally no way you're running out of power during this section. After reaching floor 5, we get a cutscene. Our character walks past an assembly line and finds the puppet's gift box. On it, we find a note that tells us to meet in the alley of Fredbear's Family Diner, signed by the puppet herself. What the fuck is going on? Why did the puppet leave this note here? Why did she know that we were going to be here? And why not just meet me to talk to me at this place since you already know I would be here? Who knows? but I'm sure we'll find out as we continue. Speaking of, let's do that. Here we are, back into the office section of the game, where this time Foxy is actually finally activated. Really should have happened last night, but we'll roll with it. Let's talk about what he does, as even though he is super basic, he's still the most interesting of the characters so far. Foxy can attack both your left and right door, much like Freddy, except Foxy actually takes advantage and turns it into an actual mechanic, unlike Freddy. Foxy too can appear at your window, except the main difference with him is that we're told he can only hear the frequency of alarm 24. So finally, we have a use for this alarm. It works in the exact same way as alarm 15 and will just send him back. The real difference with Foxy is how he attacks your door. Unlike every other character, he won't ever enter your office, so he finally gives our camera a use after 2 nights of never needing to turn around. You'll have to watch the cameras next to your office to tell which side Foxy is going to attack. When you see him enter either one of these cameras, you'll have to use the alarm on that side of the office and he'll leave. However, you may have noticed something weird when I explained that, and I'm thinking the same thing. The alarm that plays when you use it on the doors is the exact same alarm as alarm 15, yet it scares away Foxy. But the phone guy told us that Foxy can't hear alarm 15, so like, what the fuck is even going on? This makes no sense whatsoever. Just wanted to point out that little inconsistency. There's nothing else to talk about on this night, so we can move on to the next chapter. Chapter 4 puts us back into the top-down 8-bit minigame style, something I was pretty excited to see. This section acts kind of like a puzzle section, and I say kind of because there's also quite a bit that isn't puzzles. To start, all we have to do is push 2 levers, getting scared as fuck by a shadow at the same time. Maybe I can open this. Oh no, that opened up this side, okay. Oh my god! What the fuck was that? Then we have to press 2 buttons to open a gate. But I'm not kidding you, this is quite possibly one of the tightest timings I've ever seen in my life. Pressing these 2 buttons on the timer you have to press them in is borderline frame perfect. Really made my penis hurt trying to pull this off. However, after doing so, it opens another gate with some levers to pull a certain number of times to open another gate. To figure out the code, we have to do some basic mental math. But for someone like me who sucks ass at mental math, this part took me much longer to beat than it should have, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. Afterwards, we continue and have to do another even more bullshit double button press timing. This one is absolutely brutal. I can't even lie to you. Got it. Fucking A. That's ass. That opens another gate and we find the marionette. Upon walking closely, we start a conversation. We learn that we're playing as Henry, as the puppet refers to us as her father. There's a whole lot of fucking yapping here, but she basically tells him that William is killing kids again and that a new establishment is opening. The plan is to tamper with the animatronics so that Michael then tampers with them, causing them to attack William, and then William will go to take them apart, wherein he'll be forced into the suit and die, and then we'll burn down the building with everyone inside. So really just the FNAF storyline, but that's our plan. Finally, we're thrown into a midnight motorist minigame for some reason. I'm really not sure why, but it's long as fuck. And from what I could see, there was no secret way to go to juniors like there is in the original. We end by getting some dialogue from Henry and nervous about what he should do and what will happen if he goes along with the plan. And with that, we move on to the next night section that's probably going to make me fall asleep. With 3:30 rolling around, it's time for us to move on to the next night section. And believe it or not, there's actually something new that gets added this time around. That being Golden Freddy. I'm pretty sure is who this is, at least. We get a phone call from Golden Freddy this time around. He says he loves playing with us. So it seems that the atmosphere has taken an unfortunate sexual turn, but we have to roll with it. Golden Freddy's mechanic is so simple, yet easily the most annoying one we've seen yet. All he'll do is at random appear right in front of you. When he does, all you need to do is turn around and he'll leave. You might be wondering how that would ever become a challenge under any circumstance. Well, that's where we need to start talking about the rest of the character's AI being ramped up to the fucking moon during this section, because it's insane. The rest of the characters during this night move around so quickly and will be in your office almost at all times, meaning that your RAM usage is going to be through the roof for the first time throughout your playthrough. And who's going to be there to interrupt you while trying to get the animatronics out of your office and trying to get your RAM down? Golden Freddy will be there. That's who, at all times, to make sure your blood is boiling as much as possible. No 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 no. Bonnie, go away, bro! I'm getting double teamed. I'm getting double teamed. I'm getting double teamed. I'm getting double teamed. Fuck! 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 Oh my god, 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 oh my fucking god. Oh my god, my RAM is so fucking high. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, fuck. But that's really all this section has to offer. Really did a 180 in terms of difficulty, and I like it a lot considering the other sections of this game have been so piss easy I was able to film them half asleep. Chapter 5 gets a little confusing as I started to become aware that we are likely switching between the POVs of two different characters and have been throughout the game. It seems like we know we've been playing as Henry several times, and we're doing so during this section as well. But if we're playing as Henry during this section, then it must mean we're not playing as Henry during the repeating night sections. To start, this night begins with a note telling us that Fazbear's is closing after the rumors about the missing children. We all know how this goes. What gets weird is that during this section, which keep in mind is 5 a.m. to 5:30 a.m., we have to play through an entire night from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., which means that this section of the game has to have happened at a different time. We know that Henry's plan is to plant sound chips in the robots so that Michael tampers with them. Then he'll fire Michael. William will dismantle the robots and then free them or something. I don't know, it's a bit confusing, and I'm more than a bit dumb. Let's actually talk about what we have to do during this section and why I actually shouldn't be explaining it to you because I'm not even sure what I did. Basically, we have two doors to our left and right that we can close. Doing so drains our power. Throughout this night, all of the four characters will attempt to get into our office to void us of our insides, which is just not something we're looking forward to. When they get to the door, you'll hear fast footsteps. All you have to do is hold the door closed until you hear slow footsteps. However, if that's all you'll do, the characters will be at your door too frequently and you'll run out of power. So that's where the PC in front of us comes in handy. Using it, we can do two things. The first is scanning the entire building to see where the threats are at, and the second is an audio lure that you can play in any room. Let me be completely open and honest with you guys right here. I have no fucking idea the proper way to use these lures. Every time you do an action on the PC, you have to wait 6 seconds for the tools to refresh. At first, I thought I should spam lure one central area to get everyone in one spot and keep them there. But apparently, that's bad, as I was told from a tip after dying. So then, I'm not gonna lie, I just started spamming the audio lure all through a bunch of different rooms and random areas, and doing that just worked. Oh, hey, look at that. That was kinda tough. I don't know what the fuck that was. I don't know what I was doing with the audio lure. I really wish I could provide a strategy here, but I really can't. I'm guessing I just got lucky because there was literally no critical thinking coming from my head during this section. But with that, surviving until 6 a.m. will complete this half-hour section of the overall game. Again, I said this part is confusing as fuck. Henry mentions the plan to kill William is almost ready, and at least I'm pretty sure William's saying it because this cutscene starts with I am. But at the same time, a few lines later, the person talks about finding more pages, which sounds like something our non-Henry player was doing, so I literally have no fucking idea what's going on. I'm really just here to talk about the gameplay, so let's do that instead and continue. Moving on to 4:30, we've got yet another typical night section to talk about. And I can't lie to you, not much to say here. No new threats are added, but holy shit, do the threats that already exist really start to ramp up. The RNG in this section really starts to show on this night, as I would have a character at my window, at my door, down my pants, in my dick pretty much constantly, which gave me almost no time to ever delete the RAM. It took me only 2 attempts to beat this section, but the insane contrast between how aggressive they were on the first attempt versus the second is drastic and should not be overlooked. This was some crazy bullshit, but once again, nothing new is actually introduced, so we can move on to Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is by far probably the most interesting one we've talked about so far. It begins with a cutscene, one that should be all too familiar to us as FNAF fans. So just for you guys, fuck talking about it, let's take a look at it together.
So, this is it. It's time to end what William has done. It's time to end their suffering. Those little souls trapped in this labyrinth. I've gathered them up in here, and I can finally destroy them. I've found the ones that have yet to be destroyed and set free. For instance, those little children, the ones that come together as a group on a daily basis. I've always wanted to see them every single day. They'd always brighten up the atmosphere in Circus Baby's Pizza World. Every day, they'd come to play with all of the animatronics. Every employee, employer, and manager knew the name of those three. But ever since William made his poor design choices, things were never going in the right direction for them. On the very next day, they all disappeared. I'd never realized that William could create such abominations. I realized there was a reason why Funtime Freddy had a huge tank. It was quite obvious. And no wonder the other two were always active every now and then. Not to mention Circus Baby. She was brought outside on the first day and was forced to stay inside the next day. It's such a misery, to be honest. I wasn't the only one who saw Circus Baby capture Elizabeth. Now, her soul is trapped inside of her. I wouldn't forget my daughter as well. No more shall I let her suffer as one of William's creations. This place is where everything shall end. A maze with no exit. A labyrinth with no prize. They don't even realize they are trapped. For some of them, I believe there is peace and perhaps more. Although, for you, William, the darkest pit of hell is ready to swallow you whole. You will keep burning and burning along with the creations of your own. This is where the story ends. For my daughter, the other innocent children, and William, this ends for all of us. End communication.
God, it doesn't matter how many times I hear the FNAF 6 Henry speech. Every single time I hear it, it gives me chills. Easily one of the best monologues in gaming history. Right up there with the definition of insanity speech from Voss. Try to find a better speech. I fucking dare you. Anyways, on to what we actually have to do during this section after that cutscene. Well, it's very weird, to say the least. In it, we play as the puppet, wandering through a dark forest. Scattered around are the 5 souls of the missing children, each with a color above their head. We know that at this point, we're playing as Charlie, Henry's daughter, obviously. After a bit of searching, we're told to find all of the magic to set them free. Hidden around the forest are several weird magic orbs. After collecting 3, we can begin to set the children free. We do so by finding 5 colored cupcakes around the map, and taking each colored cupcake to its respective colored child. Pause. That sounds terrible. Anyways, after doing so, we hear from Henry again. He thanks his daughter for saving the children, boasts about William finally being gone. He mentions he has all the Freddy files.
He said it! He said it!
And with that, we're ready to move on to the final part of our shift, wherein after we should hopefully have the cops arrive. Because if you recall, that's literally the first thing we did. Call the police, and they're somehow still not here yet, which is completely crazy, I will add. But who cares? Let's move on to the final shift. And here we are at the final chapter of the game. What's new to talk about in this final section? A cool final boss fight night? No, it's nothing new. Same shit, different day, really. But what is interesting is what happens afterwards. Henry arrives at some door. I assume it's the door to the building. He says way too much shit nobody cares about. Like deadass, he talks for so fucking long. Bro just recaps the whole game. It was so fucking boring, I'm not even gonna put you guys through it. Point is, he collected all the Freddy files, which helped him remember what William did or something, and now William's dead. Cool. Children are free. Great. Now all we have left to do is stop Fazbear Entertainment from ever coming back. How is he going to do that? Well, lucky us, that's not our fucking problem to figure out because Henry opens the doors and the credits roll and the Freddy files comes to a close. Wait. Hold up. Freeze frame. What about the cops? Do we not remember that this game began with a phone call to the police? Where the fuck are they? Were we Henry the entire time? Or are we jumping back and forth between 2 people? And if we were Henry the entire time, where the fuck are the cops? Why did we call them if we ended up leaving the building by ourselves anyways? What the fuck is going on? Also, if that wasn't a big enough of a fuck you, this game actually still isn't done. After the credits finish rolling, the fucking creator of the game starts talking to us and goes on a whole fucking monologue about having to do a whole bunch of shit to do something. I have no fucking idea. I was hardly paying attention. Basically, we have to go back to an earlier chapter with a locked door, find a key, open the door, but not before going to another chapter where we typed in a code and instead type in his name. Whose name? I have no fucking clue. Then open the door, go to another chapter to a room that we never did anything in, find another key or something, then play 4 mini games in the extras menu, but do something specific in them to find a key in all 4, then go to the survival mode of the game, which isn't even made, by the way. Click the bottom of the screen on an invisible fucking button, then you're teleported to a room with 4 keyholes and a door. Put the 4 keys from the minigame in the holes, unlock the door, and then fucking something happens. Do I have any idea what happens? No, not at all. Well, luckily for us, I found a guy that actually did it. Shout out to Tanzi Natali for actually doing all this bullshit so that I didn't have to. Basically, there's a final boss fight with a character named Null, and it's just like a bullet hell, except shitty. Then the creator talks to us again. Apparently, the creator of the game inserted himself into the game as the Red Freddy, who apparently isn't even Golden Freddy. It's just the fucking developer. He says he can, like, change the AI of everything or something. Guys, I'm gonna be so honest, I just don't fucking give a shit. If you guys are curious as to what happened after the Null fight, go watch Tonsi's video about it. Holy shit, I just don't fucking care. But that's all the Freddy Files has to offer. Overall, I do think this game is actually pretty cool. I love the idea of mixing in night sections with the little mini games, and even though lore-wise this game is a confusing clusterfuck, I think from a gameplay standpoint, it was still pretty cool. Even if the gameplay is easy as fuck, at least there's something different to do all the time. Also, the pixel art style is super charming, so that's nice too. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this game actually has no flaws whatsoever and is actually the best FNAF experience ever made? Let me know in the comments below. In my FNAF Showtime video, I asked you guys what your favorite mechanic from any FNAF fan game was and why, and my favorite answer was this one by Rat Waffles. They said the ghost mechanic from Juniors, and I have to agree. I'm a hardcore Juniors glazer, I can't even lie, and you can see my review of it on this channel after this video. Well guys, another day, another new FNAF fan game coming out of the woodworks, and that FNAF fan game being spammed in my comments until I cover it. Usually when this happens, of course, I'm inclined to look at the project that people are talking about, and a lot of the time I add that game to my list of games to play over on Dxtr Black. Well, today is no different. One of the newest FNAF fan games to come out this year is none other than Fred and Pals, the game we'll be covering in today's video. Plenty of people have asked to hear about this one, and for a pretty damn good reason. There's a lot to talk about. So strap in as I talk about the highs and the lows of Fred and Pals. Wasting no time at all in detaching my balls and gently tossing them into night 1, we already have a bit to talk about. Mainly the tools at our disposal, how they function, and why it makes me want to put my balls in a meat grinder. To start, we have several directions we can look in inside of our office. Obviously, we can look directly in front of us, to both sides of us, and of course, behind us. In front of us is our camera system. To our left and right, we have our doors, and right behind us is a power switch. But we'll talk about that later. What is important is this little handheld device we have, the SMU. While looking behind us, or while standing next to either of the doors, we'll be able to pull up this device. While it's held, you'll be able to select any of the 4 characters in this game. And by holding down the trigger, we can shoot something in the direction we're aiming. What are we shooting? That I don't know the answer to. The device only has 3 shots in it before it needs to recharge, so we can't just be spamming this thing throughout the whole night. Unfortunate, I know, but I guess video game balancing will do what it has to do. Speaking of these characters we need to shoot, who are they? Well, actually, before we talk about that, you're getting ahead of yourself. We need to talk about the cameras first. Oh boy, the cameras. This is a lot more than you think it's going to be. Fred and Pals decided that the camera system is where they needed to deviate from the normal FNAF game. And while I do appreciate the creativity, I don't appreciate it by itself. I want to preface, it's not bad, it's just a lot. To start, there is a metric shitload of cameras. Of course, my favorite thing when it comes to cameras, you can't move your mouse to select which one you want to use. You have to use A and D to scroll through each of the cameras. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. However, unlike most other FNAF games that use this mechanic, it's not the slowest thing on planet Earth. No, quite the opposite, actually. You can scroll through cameras so quickly that sometimes you'll surf through 2 on accident. It is incredibly easy to do this and will 100% lead to you getting lost as to which camera you're currently looking at and figuring out how far away you are from the camera you actually want to look at. Speaking of looking at the cameras, let's talk about how fucking sick these ones look. They use night vision, which is why they're so green, but it also puts this crazy filter over them, which I think looks incredible. But hush up, I'm not done talking about how the camera controls. I know I'm all over the place with my explanations right now, but I don't care. You may be thinking while looking at these cameras, hey Dexter, these camera shots are kind of small. Why aren't the cameras scrolling back and forth? Fantastic question. The answer to that is you have to scroll them yourself. I'm getting flashbacks to late shift at Nintendo World. Please don't do this to me again. You have to click and drag with your mouse to scroll the cameras. But the best part, the cameras scroll in the opposite direction that you drag it in. So that's a bit disorienting to get used to, but get used to it, you must. The last thing to talk about before we move on to the threats, moving back to the doors, on top of being able to murk animatronics with our SMU, we can also close the doors like normal people. However, the doors are controlled with a crank of all things for some odd reason. No idea why, that seems pretty weird. But that means that the door can only be closed as long as you're holding it. But we'll get more into doors and how useful they are a bit later. For now, let's talk about the one threat this night introduces, Fluppy. Yes, by the way, I'm serious. That is actually this character's name. It's really just Bonnie, but the devs thought that the name changes in this game is what they needed to crack down on. Don't get me wrong, I love all the silly names in this game, but I do need to point out how silly they are. Fluppy's goal is to make it to your left door, just like Bonnie from FNAF 1. He will slowly creep through all of the cameras until he gets there. And this is where I want to mention how fucking nasty these characters look, especially the poses that they're put in on these cameras. Seriously, look at Fluppy, bro. Tell me it doesn't look like he's a child predator. He does. Child predator ass rabbit. Look at that. Fucking look at that look in his eyes, dude. What do you think he doing on a regular basis besides grooming minors on Discord? Anyways, moving past that, once Fluppy gets to the storage closet and has a successful movement opportunity, he will enter the doorway to your office. However, you will not be able to see him in your doorway since it's too dark. This gives you a reason to be keeping track of him on the camera, because if you don't, you're going to get fucked up because he doesn't make a sound cue when he's at your door. When he is at your door, you need to pull out your gun, select Fluppy, and well, just watch what happens next. Boom, bitch! I didn't like that. Yeah, honestly, one of the creepiest animations I've ever seen. The moment I saw this, I knew this was going to be getting a Dexter White video, and here we are now. Once you shoot him, he will go back to the stage and the cycle will continue. Survive until 6 a.m. and we'll move on to night 2. Night 2 is pretty much the same as night 1. To start, we obviously get a phone call from the phone guy. He asks us if we used our SMU on Fluppy. Obviously, we know we did. He says they found him standing in the back room looking up at the light. They went to grab something, and when they came back, he was back on stage. I have a real question. Why on earth? Why the fuck ever would you work at a place like this? You're telling me that the robots are moving, you don't know why they're moving, you're positive they shouldn't be moving, and yet here you are, still working while they're doing so. I feel like any sane person would get the fuck out of there immediately, but I digress. Night 2 introduces one new threat, that being Chica, or as this game calls her, Henrietta. Henrietta, as I'm sure you could have assumed, works in the exact same way as Fluppy does, except she attacks your right door instead of your left. Same rules apply to her. When she enters the doorway, which just like Fluppy, you won't be able to see, all you have to do is select her on the SMU and blast her ass and she'll go back on stage. This night did bring up a concern that I had, however, and that comes with the way the cameras operate. I mentioned how you can't just select any camera that you want, and you have to surf through each of them one by one. Mechanics like that always make me nervous in FNAF games since it takes away a large element of your control. And in a genre like FNAF where control isn't really something you have, I'm sure you could understand how this would get pretty scary. So this brings up the beginning of a flourishing strategy. To avoid switching cameras as much as possible, I needed to figure out which cameras were the last cameras that both Fluppy and Henrietta appeared on. That way I could just camp those cameras and not have to worry about constantly following them around. So I learned that Fluppy's last camera is the storage room and Henrietta's last camera is the delivery camera. And with those two important pieces of information in my noggin, we're safe to move on to night 3. With night 3 coming along, a new character is added. This character leads to a new strategy needing to be thought up. But before we talk about this new character, I want to talk about the phone call we get on this night, as it gives some pretty interesting information. To start, Phone Guy mentions that Henrietta was found in the kitchen banging pots and pans, but when he entered to investigate, she froze, which I think is really fucking creepy. It's like some Toy Story shit. She only moves when you're not looking. He explains that she's supposed to do that during the day to make the kids think she's cooking, but during the night, it should be impossible. The second thing he brings up is their head technician who should be coming to fix this problem. His name is Will. Now, could it be a coincidence that the name of this technician is a shortened version of FNAF's main antagonist? Well, yes, it very well could be. Do I think it is? No, not really. We don't get much information about him on this night, however. Anyways, moving on to the threat this night introduces. Voss. This game's Foxy. Except you want to hear something really funny? He doesn't work how Foxy works at all, and he actually makes me piss fire. Voss is present in the sheriff camera. If you pull up your camera, you'll notice several areas are red and have an electricity symbol present next to them. Throughout the night, Voss will progress through multiple stages on his starting camera. When he leaves this camera, you will hear him whistle. When he whistles, that signals to you that he has gone to one of the cameras with a fuse box. You will have to quickly find which camera he went to and hold space to send him back. So, technically another find them on the camera mechanic, which I'm not too thrilled about. However, at least there's only 4 cameras he can be on. And if you're anything like me, you remembered the tap pattern to get to each one so you can quickly navigate all of them. Oh yeah, and I totally forgot to mention that one of the fuse boxes is directly behind you. I totally forgot that my office has one of those too. Oh my god. I'm paranoid. Yeah, that caught me off guard pretty well and kind of scared the shit out of me, but hey, I think that's actually really cool that during a find them on the camera moment, the character can also choose to show up in your office. Do I like that it's a find them on the camera mechanic? No, but at least it's slightly different than the usual. But knowing that he makes a sound cue, the strategy from last night hasn't changed all that much, and we can move on to night 4. Night 4 brings a threat I'm honestly not sure how to beat, if I'm being completely honest. Quick recap of the phone call. Voss is misbehaving like Fluppy and Henrietta have been, and Fred did something odd. He stopped performing during the day and leaned forward, a bunch of oil spilling out of his chest. Phone Guy used the SMU to restart him, but instead of continuing to play, his head just snapped towards him. Personally, I would shit myself. Apparently using the SMU in front of customers is against the rules, and now Phone Guy has a meeting with the executives tomorrow, so we'll see how that goes. I personally think that's a little silly. What would they prefer he do? Just leave Fred leaning with oil leaking out of him in front of the children so they think he fucking died? What would have been a better choice in these guys' eyes? Anyways, tonight introduces Fred, and like I said, I'm not totally sure how he works. And that will make sense as I talk about him, I promise. Fred will slowly make his way to your office, and he can attack either of your doors. Every time he moves, he laughs, so that's nice. And when he's at your door, he also laughs. So following him on the cameras is not necessary at all, which I love since there's already a lot in this game. Now, when Fred gets to your door is when I get confused. You can see me live trying to figure out how to deal with him over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. At first, I just tried using the SMU on him, which seemed to work when I did, but then he killed me. The next thing I thought was maybe he's just a close the door on him character, so I tried that, but then this happened. Oh shit, I don't think I'm ever supposed to let him get here. Or maybe I'm supposed to flash him and then hold it shut? Oh boy, come on. Turn 6 a.m. right fucking now. Uh-oh. Please, Chica, be nice. Fluppy can't hurt me. That was so gay what I just did right there. So yeah, he'll just pound on the door for the rest of the night. And if you ever let go, you immediately die. So obviously in that clip, I beat the night. And with the way I now write my Dexter White videos, I haven't actually attempted night 5 at the time of writing. But if I had to guess, you have to flash Fred with your SMU, then close the door on him. But I guess I'll get myself confirmation on night 5. All right, night 5. The night I said I'd get confirmation on Fred's mechanic. I actually think writing the way I do bodes great for how shitty this game is at explaining anything. This night is the night I tried flashing Fred with the SMU and then closing the door. Spoiler alert, it did nothing. He still just pounded on the door the entire night. So that brings up the question, how the fuck am I supposed to deal with this guy? Well, I've got one more theory, but before I talk about it, let's talk about this night's phone call. Not much happens in it, but Phone Guy does tell us the meeting with the higher-ups didn't go well, and that he's getting fired. He said someone will be coming to collect his things, but they didn't tell him who. I find that odd because from everything that I know, you collect your things and someone is with you to make sure you don't, steal anything. That's how it went when I got let go from my previous job. So I find it weird that he doesn't even get to do that. He says that the building is closed to the public and explains that the only reason we're still here is because of a safety protocol. Now, I usually wouldn't question an explanation like that. However, Phone Guy laughs and says, "Yeah, right," after saying so. But he doesn't elaborate further. He says tonight is his last and that he'll be fired, so I doubt we'll be hearing from him tomorrow. Now, on to my theory on how Fred works. Throughout this video, you might have been wondering, Dexter, if you didn't know how to deal with Fred, how the hell have you made it this far? And the answer to that question is, I just got really lucky. I got very lucky that Fred only attacked me once on each of the nights he was present. I got very lucky that he only chose to attack near the end of the night. I also got lucky that Fluppy, hands down the most aggressive character in the game, happens to attack the same door that Fred chose to attack, so that while I held it closed for the whole night, Fluppy was unable to get in, and I'm incredibly lucky that both Henrietta and Voss chose not to attack me after Fred had gotten to my door. This is hands down the weirdest situation I've ever had while playing a FNAF game. I've never not understood how a character worked and still have been able to get through the nights with said character active. But anyways, my new theory on how Fred works is a sad one that makes my penis invert like a groundhog. I'm thinking you have to not allow Fred to ever get to your door by using the go back feature on the cameras to constantly push him back. Is this terrible? Yes. But that's exactly why I think that's what this game is going to want me to do. We'll find out on the final night. But I think this shows a great point of how you really need to explain things to your player. I should not be struggling this hard to figure out what a character does. Sure, you could argue that the Phone Guy saying Fred's head snapped towards him when he used the SMU was a hint to not use the SMU on him, which sure, I think that's a bit silly, but we'll roll with it. But even if that was the case, the game explained to me how the other characters worked in detail. Why not Fred? Also, if I can't use the SMU on Fred, then why the hell is it even an option on the SMU unless to hint at the fact that I can use it on him? Maybe I'm just going insane, but I don't think I am. At least give me a death explanation like a lot of FNAF fan games do. I love that shit. Anyways, time for us to move on to the final night. Hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, so night 6. Needless to say, is not even remotely close to what I expected it to be at all. But that's not a bad thing. Kind of. Let me explain. This night begins with us getting another phone call. If you're anything like me, you may be wondering who could be calling us, considering the phone guy, whose name is Dan, by the way, I just never mentioned that, was fired. Well, a man by the name of William Afton is calling us. Remember that weird technician named Will I mentioned earlier? Yeah, it wasn't a coincidence like I suspected. William tells us he's been watching us throughout the 5 nights we've been here and tells us that our run ends tonight. This night serves as a semi-boss fight night, as once the night begins, you'll notice all of the animatronics disappear off of the cameras and are replaced by only William inside of the Spring Bonnie suit. You might be wondering where the rest of the characters went, and here's your answer. Ew. Hold up. The ghosts are fucking around me. Hello? How did you guys get here? What do you have in your hand? Is that a knife? Bitch, don't come near me with that thing. So yeah, that's pretty terrifying. Anyways, how do you deal with Afton? Well, here's actually the really funny part about that. You don't. Because you can't. All of the characters are blocking your doors, preventing you from moving over to them. So when William gets to your office, you'll be dead no matter what. However, you getting knocked out by William in the office is intended, as after you come to, you'll find yourself in the back room of the building, stuffed inside of a springlock suit, with William standing in front of you. He has a classic villain monologue, and I'll just let him do the talking.
Good morning. So, finally awake? Head still ringing? Do you feel that? The weight, the locks tightening? That's the sound of control. Every bolt, every spring. My design. They call me a monster, a murderer. But I built life. I give them purpose. The world out there forgets. But inside these walls, they remember. You'll join the show now. You'll keep them company. That's what you wanted, isn't it? To be part of something bigger. The difference between us, I learned how to survive it. And I will always come back.
Thinking that we're going to be left for dead, we notice a phone on the desk in front of us. This night has us make our way over to this phone to call for help. However, we're obviously in a springlock suit, so that really isn't going to be a walk in the park exactly. We have 3 things that we can do during this section. We could walk forward slowly and lift either of our arms up. On the bottom of the screen, you'll see 3 rectangles on both sides. These are how many spring locks are in each of our arms. If all 3 go off in either, we lose. Also, if we walk for too long, our danger meter will turn red and the head of the suit will snap shut. Whenever you're holding up your arm, that arm's spring locks can't be activated. However, you can't lift up both arms at the same time. So you really have to balance which one you hold up while walking. Generally, this is the strategy. Hold up one arm and walk forward 3 steps. Switch arms and take another 3 steps. Repeat this process until the danger meter on the bottom of the screen turns yellow. Once it does, switch from taking 2 steps to only taking 2, since when the danger level is yellow, you can't really take any more than that. After completing all of that, we make it to the phone and call authorities.
911, what's your emergency?
Fred and pals. Old site. Parts and service. The suit, I'm trapped. It's crushing me.
Sir, stay calm. What is your name?
Doesn't matter. Listen. There are bodies here. Kids. Inside the suits.
Say again?
He did it. The technician Will. William Afton.
Is he present?
Yes. Somewhere nearby. Locked me in. I tried to stop him.
The rescue units are dispatched. Stay online with me and keep talking.
The children. They won't let me go.
Sir, what is that noise? Hello? Hello?
Authorities have apprehended William Afton, former technician for Fred and Pal's Pizza Entertainment. Following an anonymous emergency call, authorities conducted a thorough investigation inside the abandoned pizzeria. They recovered the remains of the missing children, trapped within the animatronic suits, and also discovered the security guard's fate sealed within another suit. Evidence confirmed William's role in the horrifying events. With the truth finally revealed, the pizzeria was closed permanently and the community could begin to heal. Though the security guard did not survive, their courage brought justice. William Afton and his grim legacy will remain forever trapped within the darkness of Fred and Pals. And now, at last, the soul of the children find peace and can move on, freed from their torment, leaving behind a sense of calm and healing. And there you have it. With that, we get the good ending, and Fred and Pals comes to a close. Overall, I think Fred and Pals was very fun, albeit a short fan game, which there's obviously nothing wrong with. This game has such a recognizable art style, and I especially love the way the cameras look.
This game was wonderful at building atmosphere, the gameplay loop is interesting enough with the length of the game, and the ending does something completely different, which is always super awesome to see. Also, if you were curious, since the final night isn't a typical night, I never actually got the chance to go against Fred again to see how he worked. And at the time of writing this, I still don't know exactly how to deal with him. But I honestly think it's a lot funnier if I don't tell you, since I never learned how it worked and I was still able to beat the game. My guess is that you have to push him back in the cameras, but unless someone in the comments explains it, I'll never know, and I think that's funny. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think Fred and Pals just doesn't have enough going for it to be memorable? Let me know in the comments below. In my Late Shift at Nintendo World video, I asked you guys what your favorite asset dump FNAF game was and why, and my favorite answer was everyone who said Five Nights at Wario's. I don't really know what I was expecting. Of course that was going to be the most popular answer. Being overwhelmed. Not necessarily something as we people look for in life. There are a lot of things people like to do that don't really make sense to me. Some people like to go cliff jumping or skydiving, something to give them an adrenaline rush, and while I myself would never do it, I can at least understand how that could be appealing. You want to know something nobody ever wants though? To be overwhelmed. This is the reason why a lot of max mode challenges can turn a lot of people off, and the same reason why I have no interest in trying out Hopeless Pursuit. For the love of God, please stop emailing me about Hopeless Pursuit, I'm not doing it. However, recently I found a FNAF game that is one of the most unique FNAF experiences I've ever played, except there was something very interesting about it. It has to be one of the most overwhelming Five Nights at Freddy's games I've ever played. This is probably going to be a long one, so sit back, relax, and let's talk about Next Week at Freddy's. Next Week at Freddy's takes FNAF 1 and completely reworks everything about it, adding several brand new mechanics to make your heart sink into your ass. And nothing explains this feeling better than when you load into the office and turn around for the first time.
Oh, whoa. Whoa. Oh. 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 Fuck.
This is the control panel, your main mode of defense throughout this game. If this looks like a lot, that's because it is. Here's a fun fact. I actually went to play this game around 4 months ago, but after seeing this monstrosity behind me, I actually ended my recording and chose a different game to play because of how ridiculous it looked. This control panel is intimidating. There are so many switches, levers, and panels on this thing. I wouldn't blame you if you decided just from glancing at this that this game wasn't for you. To really understand just how much shit goes on in this game and how much you'll have to learn, this game actually gives you a tutorial night where you can mess around with everything in the building for as long as you want, because just throwing you into the game would 100% be too overwhelming. Next Week at Freddy's doesn't have any phone calls, nobody to help you and to explain to you what to do. Except there kind of is. This is Comcat. Get used to seeing him a lot. His first major role is in the tutorial night, where he will teach you how to use the computers and teach you the mechanics of each important camera in the game, which, by the way, there is a fuck ton of them. So strap in and get ready because it's about to get insane. I'll explain the important mechanics as they become relevant, so let's start with how Comcat works, because yes, of course, he himself acts as a threat. While Comcat himself can't kill you, he can be the most annoying character on the face of the earth when he wants to be. You can click on his icon on your taskbar to make him appear. There are a few phrases he will say when you do this, and occasionally a phrase will prompt you to respond to it. While you're talking with Comcat, you won't be able to interact with anything else on the computer. This includes your cameras, but to be honest, everything else on the computer isn't useful from a gameplay standpoint. If you don't periodically check on Comcat this way, he will take speaking with you into his own hands and appear on the screen whenever he wants. He's pretty much just Bonzi Buddy, except he doesn't steal your private data. When Comcat chooses to appear on his own, the conversation you'll have with him will be much longer than if you initiated the conversation yourself. And since you can't control anything until Comcat leaves, it's in your best interest to occasionally check up on him. 2 characters become active on night 1, Bonnie and Chica. But before we talk about their mechanics, I want to take a moment to really appreciate how amazing this game looks. Every little detail looks incredible. especially the animatronics. If you look very closely, you'll be able to see the fuzz from the fabric on the robots. It's honestly some of the coolest stuff I've ever seen. So much attention to detail, it's incredible. But now we can talk about how Bonnie and Chica work. And trust me, these guys do way more than what they do in the official games. Like, take every mechanic that each of them does from every official game and merge them together, and I bet you that they will still do more in this game. I told you it was overwhelming, so let's get into it. Let's start with Bonnie, since he's usually the baseline, basic FNAF character. The character that should be simple to understand and should pave the way for more interesting mechanics to form off of it in later animatronics. How much could he possibly do? Well, a fuck ton. Like, a shitload. Bonnie's a whole fucking FNAF game by himself, I can't even lie. Bonnie starts on stage. You might be wondering why I'm not just saying what I usually say.
Oh, he walks around the building and eventually makes his way to your office.
Well, because he's not that simple this time around. So tracking his movements is actually important. Bonnie has 4 possible attack methods. I'm sorry. 4? That's the most insane thing I've ever heard of. And Bonnie is supposed to be the simplest character? I'm mortified of what is yet to come. Well, calm down, buddy. Let's go over each possible route that Bonnie can take, starting with the most basic one, heading to your office. This one is simple. Bonnie will walk to your office, appear in your window for a while, and eventually walk into the doorway where you can really see how fucking hulkingly terrifying these robots are. I know that FNAF 1 animatronics are like 6'9" or something like that canonically, but no FNAF game has really shown that off in a way that is meaningful. Seeing the animatronics in the doors in this game is actually kind of scary. Obviously, just close the door and you'll be a-okay. However, do keep in mind that the animatronics in this game like to sit at the door for approximately 12 years, so that's fun. Bonnie's next means of making your life miserable is through attacking the compressor room. What the fuck is the compressor room? Well, now is the time we get to start talking about the control panel, and where this game really starts to become an overwhelming headache. The compressor is a large machine inside of the building. The compressor is what allows the doors all throughout the building to be closed, because as I'm sure you could have guessed, it compresses the air that allows the pistons of the door to work properly. I think. I don't know, I'm not an engineer. If any engineers are watching, explain how wrong I am about compression and pistons or whatever the fuck in the comments. Thanks. Bonnie will try to enter this compressor room through the hallway camera right before your office. You will have to use the control panel behind you to remotely close off the door to the compressor room before Bonnie gets the chance to enter. However, it's moments like these where I need to bring up an issue I was never able to figure out myself. Since this game is made in a 3D environment, unlike the Click Team FNAF games, it gives a lot more room for the characters to move around. So it's very common that you'll be able to see characters in multiple places on the same camera. When it comes to doors like the compressor room, telling exactly where the animatronic's next move is going to be is borderline impossible. Sometimes it's obvious and the character will be standing right next to the door facing it. However, sometimes they'll be miles upon miles away from the fucking door, yet still have their next movement opportunity be into said door.
You're not near the door, you're fine.
Oh, Chica, you dick. So this leads to you closing doors whenever you see a character on the camera, which a lot of the times the character was never going to enter in the first place, therefore just wasting a fuck ton of power for no reason. If Bonnie manages to get into the compressor room, he'll slap his fat crack all over it and break it, which will require you to reboot your compressor. With your compressor off, you obviously won't be able to shut any of the doors throughout the building. This includes the doors you can close on the cameras. Bonnie's next attack strategy is the camera connections in the server room. This works exactly the same as the compressor room in theory. You can close the door to the server room when an animatronic is close, using the control panel behind you. If Bonnie manages to get inside the server room, he'll drop his big fat stupid balls all over the control panel and fuck up your camera connections, making you unable to see any of the cameras. You will then have to manually reboot them, which along with the compressor reboot takes a very long time. However, I'd argue that not being able to see your cameras affects the gameplay loop a lot more often. Where a lot of FNAF games fail to make the cameras super useful, Next Week at Freddy's succeeds greatly at making the cameras more important than any other tool at your disposal. The final attack strategy that Bonnie can have is activating Foxy, which brings up Foxy altogether. There are actually 2 different versions of Foxy in this game, the normal one and the scrapped one in the back room. We'll talk about the back room one later. For now, let's focus on the main Foxy. By himself, Foxy is incapable of doing anything and will never attack you, only through the assistance of Bonnie and 2 other animatronics that can activate him. Bonnie has the chance to enter Pirate's Cove and attempt to activate Foxy. Once Bonnie enters, you won't have a super long time to stop him before Foxy comes for that ass.
Whoa, no. Fucking dick! My whole asshole just fell off. It did, just dropped right out. Just dropped, just flop, just fell right out of my ass.
Using the special flashlight on the Pirate's Cove camera, you can scare away any unwanted animatronics. However, using this light does temporarily cause higher power usage from everything that uses power. For what reason? I have no fucking idea. I guess God just hates me. If you don't scare Bonnie away fast enough, Foxy will activate and run to your door. If you don't close it fast enough, he'll place his hook into your rectum, and I'm sure you can imagine how unpleasant that would be. If you do close the door on time, just like FNAF 1, he'll take away some of your power. Except unlike FNAF 1, the max he can take isn't 6, instead being like fucking 15% power just disappears out of existence. So really make sure you're watching that Pirate's Cove camera. Whew. There, a couple of pages into the script, and I'm finally done talking about the very first character in this game. Isn't that awesome? Now it's time to talk about Chica. Chica also has 4 different ways to attack you. Isn't that just fucking awesome? Luckily for us, 3 of the mechanics are identical to Bonnie. Obviously, Chica can attack your right door. She can also try to fuck up your cameras using the server room, and she's one of the other characters that will attempt to activate Foxy. However, I have noticed that it seems like Bonnie will attempt to a lot more frequently. However, that may also just be because Bonnie's AI value is typically always higher than Chica's is. The new mechanic that Chica adds is pretty similar to Bonnie's compressor attack, except Chica will attempt to attack your power grid. When you see her near the power grid door, you can obviously close it using the control panel behind you. If she manages to get into the power grid room, she will literally just shut off the power to the entire building, and you'll have to reboot it, which takes quite a long time. The power being turned off is undoubtedly the most dreadful situation you can be in. Not only does it require you to wait a billion years for your power to turn back on, but the power being turned off also turns off the compressor, meaning that after you wait forever for the power to turn back on, you then have to wait forever again for the compressor to turn back on. And on top of that, at the start of each night, you have to boot up the cameras, which takes time in and of itself. So of course, when the power is cut, you'll have to reboot the computer as well. Oh yeah, and don't forget to be checking on Comcat frequently or he'll waste even more of your time. Geez, Dxtr, this sounds pretty complicated, and we haven't even introduced everyone yet? Exactly. We still have a lot more to talk about. But if you want to feel a little bit better, the lower the character's AI, the less likely they are to make the most effective choices, meaning that on night 1, most of the movement will be Bonnie and Chica trying to disable your cameras. I personally didn't have them come to my doors on night 1 at all. Night 2 doesn't add anything new, it just increases the AI of Bonnie and Chica, so chances are you're going to be seeing at least one of them at your door on this night. However, I will be taking this time to talk about what I feel is this game's biggest flaw: time. The nights in this game are long as fuck. I'm talking super fucking long. However long you think they are, they're longer. Most typical FNAF games now will have a real life second equal 1 in-game minute, meaning that most nights in FNAF games are 6 minutes long. I feel this is a good length for a night, just dividing the in-world night time in minutes by 10. However, Next Week at Freddy's thought it'd be really funny and a little bit quirky to make each in-game minute 2 seconds in real life, meaning that each night in Next Week at Freddy's is a whopping 12 fucking minutes long. Are we serious? I guess I get it. The animatronics move pretty slowly to give you time to properly search for them on the cameras. But 12 minutes? I think I'd rather swallow a grenade and die, thank you. Like, I still beat the whole game, but god damn, losing when you're 11 minutes into a night will really make you question how violent of a person you actually are. Now, something interesting happens after beating night 2. We get thrown into what this game calls nightmare segments. Think of them like this game's version of a post-night minigame, except this time there's actually way more to do and it isn't mind-numbingly boring. Well, okay, the first one is. During this nightmare segment, we wake up in the back room of the restaurant. Is this actually happening or is this a nightmare? I'm not 100% sure, but I'm leaning more towards it being a nightmare just because of the name of the segment. We wake up on the floor and notice that the door is closed and we're stuck inside. We say that someone will surely come to find us, and without even standing up, the nightmare ends. Again, I told you the first one was boring, but they will only get more and more interesting from here, trust me. Moving on to night 3, once again, nothing new is added. The AI of Bonnie and Chica are just increased. But you really have to think, with how many different ways each of them can attack you, and how overwhelming the game's system as a whole is, this is still enough to make each night feel significantly more difficult than the last. Moving on to the second nightmare segment, we're finally able to stand up and really get a good look at our surroundings. The room is very small and very cramped, which would give any normal person a feeling of claustrophobia. We pick up a flashlight that barely does a goddamn thing and start to explore for an exit. It's at this point where I notice that these nightmare sections would be my least favorite part of the game because of the horrendous mix of both motion blur and horrific head bobbing. But that's really besides the point. We eventually notice a door and recognize that it's just like the one in the office. However, the lever that controls the door is missing. We find it on a desk, but before we can attach it to escape, a throbbing pain comes to our head and we pass out. Night 4 is where we get to talk about the new and final threat this game has to offer. But don't let that fool you, because this threat is a big one. A big stinker. A poopy head for all of you elementary schoolers out there who really shouldn't be watching my channel. Night 4 introduces Freddy, and let me tell you, he's got all the tricks up his sleeve, and he's ready to flatten you like a pancake and fold you like an omelet. Freddy can literally do everything, and he moves faster than the other animatronics, so needless to say, he's going to be the one that grabs a clump of your rump and doesn't let go like a snapping turtle. Not only can Freddy take all 4 of the paths that Bonnie and Chica can take, those being fucking the compressor room, activating Foxy, killing the power, and disconnecting your cameras, he can also attack either of your doors, and there's also something else unique to him that he can do. Remember how I told you that there are 2 Foxies in this game? Yeah, Freddy fucks around with the other one. Scrapped Foxy is present in the back room. The only other character who will enter this room is Freddy. And be careful, because sometimes seeing Freddy on this camera can be pretty difficult, as he has the habit of hiding in the shadows. When you see Freddy in the back room, shut the door to Scrapped Foxy's room using the control panel behind you. If Freddy manages to get inside, he will send Scrapped Foxy to your office. However, unlike normal Foxy, Scrapped Foxy can attack either of your doors. I personally have no idea how much power he takes away when he pounds on your door, as I'm a fucking god gamer and never had to deal with him.
It is a mistake I will not make again. Okay, let's talk about this. I had that fucking door closed when Freddy was in there.
Which, by the way, you can see my epic FNAF skills on my second channel, Dxtr Black. But once Scrapped Foxy pounds on your door, he'll break in the hallway where he won't reactivate for the rest of the night. And from here, nothing else actually gets added to the night sections. Each night just gets more and more difficult. Now sure, there aren't a lot of threats that can happen at the same time, but the reason why this game is so overwhelming is because of how much you have to remember. You have to know where all the characters are. You have to understand how each mechanic works, and you have to be able to control your nerves during all of this for 12 minutes straight and barely pass each night due to almost running out of power because these animatronics camp more than a fat Call of Duty player.
Oh, hi, Chica. My luck is gargantuan right now.
Moving on to the third nightmare segment, this game really shows how much of a dickhead it can really be. We wake back up and are finally able to put the lever on the door, only to find out that the door isn't even getting power. Which doesn't make sense because we know from the night sections that if there's no power, the door opens, but what the fuck ever, I'm pretty sure this is literally just a nightmare. Turning around, we notice that the once cramped room is now larger, as a wall that was previously present has disappeared, now leading into a large storage area. With our worthless flashlight in hand, we venture into the dark room, following a wire on the ceiling that will hopefully lead to something to turn the power on. After some wandering, we find a breaker box, but it's locked and we're unable to get into it. We figure a key must be around the maze of a storage area somewhere, so we set out to find it. Guys, I hated this section so fucking much. I mentioned earlier I have motion sickness, and this gameplay is some of the most nauseating shit I've ever seen in my life. During my playthrough, which you can watch over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I spent a pretty decent amount of time looking for this key, and I couldn't find it. With my head pounding and really just wanting to wrap up the video, I looked up a walkthrough just to see where it was. I went to the location where the guy in the walkthrough found it, shout out to Indie Fuel by the way, only to find that the key wasn't there. The key spawns in a random location, so you can't look up where it is. I now had to spend who the fuck knows how long wandering around with the feeling that my head was about to implode looking for a key the size of your ball sack. However, eventually I did find it and I used it to unlock the breaker, only to find out that all we unlocked was another fucking lock. God damn it! Are you serious? This is not a thing that has ever existed. Now we have to find a 4-digit code in this fucking hellhole. This is by far the worst nightmare segment in the entire game. It is ruthless. At first I thought, oh, let's just try the classics. You know, 1987, 1983, but nothing worked. So I assumed that I had to go find the numbers somewhere. I checked the walkthrough, and of course, the code is randomized. Amazing. After once again, who fucking knows how long, I wander back to the breaker, only for the game to then tell me that I should listen for clicks on the correct numbers. Are you fucking me right now? Why did you not tell me that when I was guessing codes before? Why did you wait so fucking long to come up with that? This game hates me. This game is pulling my hair and just plowing the shit out of me like I'm a dirty little slut. But whatever. We input the code and flip the breaker switch. And as we're walking back to the door to try and open it, we once again pass out. I guess that's what happened when you're just fucked for hours upon hours at a time. You get so tired, you just pass out. Fantastic. As I've said, Night 5 doesn't add anything new, so we can just jump right back into the hellhole that is these nightmare segments, where the same 15-second ambience loops forever right in my fucking ear when I already have a goddamn headache. Once again, we wake up and walk back to the door to see if we can open it. We flip the switch, and for fuck's sake, something's wrong with the compressor, so we have to go try and find something else. Now, I'm not sure if this next part was just a me thing, so for anyone else who has played this game, let me know if this next part happened to you. We're told literally nothing of importance. The only thing our character states is something along the lines of, "What am I going to do now?" And that's all we're left with. So my first thought is something along the lines of, oh, I just need to look for another who the fuck knows what. So I did just that. I wandered around the storage area looking for something I hadn't seen before. Who can even say how long I was wandering around before I eventually found what I was supposed to find? Directly next to the original room that we were in at the beginning of the nightmare segments, another wall miraculously disappeared, and that's where we were supposed to go. That wouldn't even be a huge problem if I could fucking see anything at all, but it's so fucking dark. I can't see my hands. It's so dark I can't even think, which I know doesn't make sense, but fuck it, here we are. Entering this new room, we see a bunch of pipes on the wall. We know the power is on, but figure that there's a generator somewhere that hasn't been turned on, because it wouldn't be a horror game if you didn't have to turn on a generator at some point, now would it? After wandering down a hallway that probably took me 20 minutes to find because I couldn't see a fucking thing, we stumble into the room where the generator is. We power it on and promptly pass out once more because of how loud it is. I'm sure you could guess, nothing new of note in Night 6, just really fucking hard. In the final nightmare segment, we wake up once more. We walk back to the pipes only to find that a bunch of gas, or air, whatever the fuck, is leaking out of them. So we have to find something to close the valves, which means I get to play another game of walk around aimlessly with a headache looking for a randomly generated tiny object when I can't see a fucking thing. After a long time searching, we find a valve. We then have to take the valve back over to the pipes and figure out which of the billion of them to close off. At first I thought, let's follow the pipe that leads to the door we're trying to open. So after following the completely unconventional and nonsensical twists and turns of the pipes, I found the one that went to the door. Placing the valve in that pipe, I tightened it and it caused the valve to shoot out at Mach 1000 and land who the fuck knows where. So you know what we get to do now? Play another game of walk around aimlessly with a headache looking for a randomly generated tiny object when I can't see a fucking thing. After finding it lying on the fucking ground, I decided, fuck it, I'm just gonna brute force this one. And to my luck, the pipe I chose to put the valve in next just so happened to be the correct one, thank God. Finally, we head back over to the door and try to open it one final time, and finally it opens. We see a newspaper with some audio from a newscast playing in the background, explaining that an employee at Freddy Fazbear's burned down the building after reporting that the animatronic stalked him during the night. This employee is who I can only assume to be us. We were placed into a psychiatric hospital because everyone just assumed we were cuckoo bananas. We also find out that the owner of the restaurant, who in this game is called Jacob Fazler, retarded name, I should mention, has been arrested for killing several children, probably in reference to the typical FNAF missing children's incident. And of course, the co-owner Marcus Reed killed his daughter. Why did this game choose to give them different names instead of calling them William and Henry? I'm not totally sure. But with that, the main game of Next Week at Freddy's comes to a close. But this game's lore goes a lot deeper than what we've seen. I mean, seriously, the backstory of this game takes up an overwhelming majority of this game's own Wikipedia page. Throughout this game, you're able to look through the files on the computer while also doing things like checking the cameras. It's through these files where you can learn the most overwhelming bullshit you've ever been up against in your entire life. Alright, so let's break down the absolute shit show that is this game's retelling of the original FNAF lore. As I understand it, and with significant help from the wonderful writing of City, the creator of the FNAF fan game wiki. Seriously, I couldn't do this shit without you. No idea how you had it in you to write all this, but here's my shitty retelling. Next Week at Freddy's kicks off with Jacob Fazler and Marcus Reed, the two guys behind Fazbear Enterprises. They started cooking up the idea in the late 80s, and by October of 1989, they have brought the building that would become Freddy Fazbear's Pizza family restaurant. Jacob even logs all of his progress on the same computer in the office you used during the game, talking about buying the stage, wiring the rooms, and bragging about getting pneumotronics to build the animatronics. He also casts the voices: Adam Burton as Freddy, Rick Ellis as Foxy, and Davey and Suzanne Paul for Bonnie and Chica. By 1990, the place is open. Business is booming, Jacob marries Nancy, she helps out in the studio, and soon they're running 3 locations. Everything looks fine, but Marcus slowly drifts away from the company, skipping meetings and distancing himself. In 1995, Jacob installs the infamous control panel in the office. You know, the fucking NASA dashboard of switches that's basically the whole reason this game is overwhelming in the first place. Then, life falls apart. Nancy dies, and that's never explained, and Jacob is left raising their daughter Lara on his own. Lara grows up around the restaurant but loses interest in it, and Marcus cashes out of the company entirely. Jump to 1999. Jacob gets a shiny $12 million offer from Sunbird Hotel Corporation to expand, and for the first time in years, he's motivated again. But in 2001, Marcus storms back demanding his old share. Jacob tells him, "Too bad, fucker, the deal's already done," and Marcus has a meltdown. He's literally dragged out by Adam Burton, Freddy's voice actor, and Marcus files a lawsuit, but the outcome is never revealed. And then tragedy hits. In June 2001, Lara is found dead in the storage room of Freddy's. 3 days later, Sunbird pulls their deal. Jacob's later logs get darker. He writes about hearing Lara's cries and feeling like she's watching him, angry. By 2002, he admits he's, quote, made a mistake. That mistake? Involvement in the deaths of 3 children. Not long after, Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica start moving in disturbingly lifelike ways, which, yeah, the model viewer pretty much confirms are the spirits of those 3 kids. Meanwhile, the employee chat logs on that same office computer show the slow collapse of the place. Staff complain about the animatronics walking around on their own, about creepy suits left lying around, about Jacob drinking and acting strange after Lara's death. Scrap Foxy briefly gets mentioned as this janky earlier version of Foxy. There's even a memo from Jacob banning guest mode after a balloon incident, and literally bolting the animatronics to the stage to avoid lawsuits. And as far as I'm aware, that's all Next Week at Freddy's has to offer. Overall, I think it's one of the most creative FNAF games ever designed from a gameplay standpoint. The game looks gorgeous, it functions really well, and it found a way to make literally every single mechanic useful, which is something a lot of FNAF games just don't seem to be able to do. I would highly recommend you play this game and give it a try. You will not regret it. But let me know what you think. Do you agree with me, or do you think this game is actually horseshit? Let me know in the comments below. In my Mac Tonight video, I asked you guys what your favorite story from a FNAF game was, and my favorite comment was this one by RetroXGamer, who said The Return to Freddy's. That's just the funniest joke I've ever heard, because the story of that series is actually so hot garbage that I need to jump into an ice bath to cool off. Subscribe to the channel, I'd appreciate it a lot. Buy some merch because I'm Rizzy, I've been Dexter, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya!